Chapter 43. Looking for top-quality ingredients. I didn't expect that you would look like a boss when you are really one. After talking to Manager Huang and the main chef, Guan Shuqing beamed at the serious Wang Xian. Haha, really? Do I look like a professional? Wang Xian chuckled and asked in vain. Yes, a little. Looks like you're going to be busy in the next few days. Where are you going to find top-quality ingredients? Do you want me to go with you? Guan Shuqing asked him with a smile. Not really. You have to run around to find them. Besides, the weather is hot. You will stay in the shop and keep a tab on my money. Wang Xian looked at her smilingly. Well, what's the matter with that? I can take hardship well. Guan Shuqing rolled eyes at him. I still cannot allow the belle of the University of Rivertown to run around outside and get tanned. Otherwise, I am committing a sin by doing so. I have ways to get those top-quality ingredients. Don't worry. You'll get food tasting first after I got them. Wang Xian spoke with a smile. You better be careful if you're asking me to try. I'll eat so much that your restaurant might go bankrupt. Guan Shuqing said with some slyness. Haha, if you really did it, then I have nothing to say. Wang Xian said with a smile. I'll be leaving in a while. Later, you'll learn the daily revenue and expenses from Manager Huang. After which, check on the inventory. I'll need you to look after my money in the future. He continued joking. Sure, go get busy. Guan Shuqing nodded to him. Okay, I'll give you your wage in advance. Let me know if you need more in the future. Wang Xian stood up and fished for his phone. He transferred $10,000 to her through WeChat. Guan Shuqing took out her phone immediately when she heard it buzz. However, Wang Xian took away her phone and received the money on her behalf. He smiled and said, If you work for me, you'll get to enjoy life. Wang Xian returned her phone to her and spoke teasingly. Guan Shuqing froze for a moment as she looked at the transaction on her WeChat. With a slight blush on her cheek, she said, Humph, that would depend on my mood too. If the boss is nasty, I'll quit too. Okay, I'm leaving. Wang Xian grinned and waved to Guan Shuqing. Get going. Guan Shuqing looked at him and said, Director Wang, see you. I'll take care of everything in the restaurant. On seeing that Wang Xian was about to leave, Manager Huang immediately walked over and saw him off. Okay, call me if there's anything. Work together with Guan Shuqing too. Wang Xian nodded. Rest assured, Director Wang. Manager Huang nodded. After he left first-grade restaurant, Wang Xian rode his Harley motorcycle to the seaside while thinking of ways to fish for the seafood. The restaurant required top-quality ingredients every day. Hence, he would need a large volume of seafood. There were many top-rated seafoods available in the domestic waters. Take lobster as an instance. Those who knew something about seafood would understand that the Australian lobsters were one of the average-priced lobsters. However, the price was jacked up to $200 to $250 for every catty in recent years. Within China, several kinds of lobsters were more expensive than Australian lobsters, like the scalloped spiny lobsters, ornate spiny lobsters, and striped spiny lobsters. But too many locals were foodies. Hence, the number of lobsters in China's domestic waters were left with very few of them. As such, they were too overpriced. In particular, the Chinese ornate spiny lobsters, also known as the divine lobsters or the rainbow lobsters, were jacked up to $5,000 to $6,000 for every 4 to 5 catties. In addition to the lobsters, the wild giant yellow croaker fish and Chinese bahaba fish found in China were expensive as well. 3 catties of wild giant yellow croaker would cost about $8,000 to $12,000 for every catty. While the Chinese bahaba fish cost a few million for each, its fish gelatin could fetch a scary price of hundreds of thousands of dollars. These fish could be found in the nearby waters around the country, but it had become so scarce that it was hard to find one in a few years. If I can catch fish like wild giant yellow croakers and Chinese bahaba fish, it would give us some great publicity. Wang Xian pondered to himself. Very soon, he came to the seaside. He parked his Harley motorcycle at the side and walked to a remote spot. He took off his clothes. With a swift movement, Wang Xian jumped into the water. Transform into dragon! Splash! In just a move, Wang Xian turned into a 2 meters long divine dragon. The divine dragon exuded strong and powerful strength as it swished its tail and dived into the ocean. I'll check out the clam girl first. She should have some transformation after the 2 days' cultivation, Wang Xian thought to himself and headed to the spot where the clam girl was. The golden tail swung, surging strong currents. On seeing Wang Xian swimming over, some of the surrounding marine animals were shuddering and dared not move. Some even fled in terror. Soon, Wang Xian arrived around the remote island in the middle of the ocean, sensing the position of the clam girl. Moving his body, he swam to the clam girl. Queen Clam, Level 6. Art of Cultivation, Water Dragon Transformation. Superpower, ability to control clam race whose level is lower than own existing level, water control. No changes to her level, but she has cultivated her own superpower. She can control her own kind whose level is lower than hers, and water. Wang Xian was surprised to see the clam girl's attributes. On top of that, the name of the clam girl was changed to Queen Clam. Dragon King! Sensing Wang Xian's arrival, the clam girl opened its shell and revealed the flesh inside. He was surprised to find that the flesh had gradually become humanoid. However, there were no limbs and face except for a simple embryonic form. Does that mean the clam girl will change into a human when her level gets higher? Wang Xian secretly thought to himself. He looked at the clam girl and commanded, Clam girl, show me your water control ability. Yes, Dragon King! After sending the message to the clam girl, he found that the water around him began to surge. The surge was extremely powerful. Soon, he noticed that the sea water at the bottom of the ocean began to freeze. Boo! At this time, he saw a solidified water body appeared beside the clam girl. With her mind control, the ball of water was hurled forward. The ball of water was thrown off on the boulder at the side, leaving a dented mark on it. Not bad, the clam girl possesses a fair strength now. With her sturdy clamshell, the sharks might not necessarily be able to beat her. Follow me to the sea farther out. Wang Xian ordered the clam girl. Yes, Dragon King. Wang Xian nodded. He took the clam girl to the waters farther out. To his surprise, the clam girl was moving at a breakneck speed. Her water control ability allowed her to control the flow of water around her and accelerate her pace. She just cultivates on the water dragon transformation. As time goes by, she will be more powerful than now. Wang Xian looked and sped forward. A golden divine dragon, along with an odd and huge sea clam, were swimming freely in the vast ocean. Chapter 44: The Chaotic Coral Reefs Area. Grouper. Wild grouper costs approximately $100 per catty currently. Tiger grouper. Wild tiger grouper costs approximately $200 per catty currently. While swimming in the seas, Wang Xian would spot precious fish from time to time. However, all these fish were devoured by him directly. As the quantity was too low or only one, it wouldn't be useful even if he had brought it to the restaurant. The truth was that within the seas, there was still a lot of fish that had a high value. However, the less common they were, the higher the value. High-value fish were often not available in large quantities. The Bohai Sea was one of the most shallow sea regions in the country, and was only several dozens of meters deep. Currently, Wang Xian could dominate all marine animals that were within 20 meters of him using his dragon energy. The resources in nearby regions of the country are too scarce and couldn't be compared with the sea regions of Europe and the Americas. With such a large population and uncontrolled fishing, many marine animals were on the brink of extinction. The marine animals within the seas couldn't be compared with regions in other countries. There's a small school of fish right ahead. Wang Xian squinted his eyes and looked at the several hundreds of fish in front of him. Those should be black sea bream, a common fish found in the Bohai Sea. Moving his body, he dominated the school of fish using his dragon power before the school of black sea bream could react to the situation. Devour. Wang Xian opened his mouth and started devouring the hundreds of black sea bream one after another. Name Wang Xian. Race: human, able to transform into a dragon. Level 3. Dragon energy: 323/100,000. Superpower: dominate the marine animals, ability to rule any marine animals that are lower than your own level. Devour any form of marine animals, for extraction of dragon energy. Art of cultivation: divine dragon transformation. I still need a lot of dragon energy to reach level 4, but let's put aside the issue of leveling up and focus on finding some top quality ingredients first. Wang Xian looked at his attributes and thought to himself. He looked at the clam girl behind him before heading forward. The place right ahead is really beautiful. The seafloor of the seas was broader and more magnificent. They also had a stranger landscape than those on the land. After swimming for about an hour, other than finding several large lobsters, he didn't see any other top-quality seafood. He looked ahead and noticed colorful reefs ahead of him. The entire seafloor was decorated with different colors. Under the illumination of the faint sunlight, it looked very magical. However, the landscape was very chaotic in that area, with protruding rocks from time to time. Wang Xian also noticed that there were many torn fish nets around that area. If one drove a fishing boat over to fish in this chaotic coral reefs region with lots of sharp rocks, it would be over if his net got caught on the rocks and was cut open. Wang Xian accelerated and swam over and found fishing nets on many rocks. What Wang Xian didn't know was that this area was known as the chaotic coral reefs region by experienced fishermen in the Bohai Sea. The reason why it was known as such was that there were many submerged reefs in this area. It was also considered as the restricted ground for fishing. The resources around these areas are clearly more abundant. As Wang Xian approached the area, he immediately saw a school of pomfret. There were approximately 400 to 500 of them that were swimming in the vicinity. Moving his body, he encountered schools of fish and still chose to devour them. Boom! Wang Xian charged over and dominated the school of level 0 pomfrets directly. After which, he turned them into dragon energy. It's pretty here. After devouring the school of pomfrets, Wang Xian turned his attention to the entire coral reef region in front of him. Although the landscape wasn't smooth, it was of different colors and one couldn't hide the magical feeling this place was giving off. Wang Xian wiggled his body slightly and looked to the surroundings. He noticed that there were quite a number of jellyfish around. Jellyfish were poisonous marine animals. Strong jellyfish could even poison a person to death easily. However, only uniquely horrifying jellyfish would pose a threat to Wang Xian. As for ordinary jellyfish, Wang Xian wasn't wary at all. Wang Xian swam slowly towards the inner regions of the coral reefs. That should be scalloped spiny lobster. The current price of it is about $200 per catty. Wang Xian saw a lobster that weighed over a catty passing by. With just a thought, he controlled it with his dragon power and made it swim towards him. Swoosh! However, at this moment, a horrifying living animal emerged from the seafloor and bit on that scalloped spiny lobster directly. Crack, crack! That monster bit onto the head of the lobster directly. In just a short while, it had killed the lobster. Wang Xian was slightly shocked and quickly turned his attention to that monster. This is conger eel! Wang Xian squinted his eyes. Conger eels were considered as violent animals just like an electric eel. Similarly to an electric eel, a conger eel was capable of discharging electricity. In addition, a conger eel was more horrifying than an electric eel. Conger eel was known for his tenacity, and would even attack other types of fish. Wang Xian was scrutinizing this ingesting conger eel. It had a body that spanned 2.5 meters and a hideous-looking head. With just a single bite, it broke the shell of the lobster. Conger eel, level 3. Extractable dragon energy, 231. A level 3 conger eel. Wang Xian opened his mouth slightly. At level 3, his dragon power would not have a huge influence on the conger eel. He wiggled his tail slightly and opened up his claws. Jerking ahead, he attacked the conger eel directly. Swoosh! Just as Wang Xian charged over, the conger eel, which was 10 meters away, immediately lifted its head and looked at Wang Xian with a cold stare. At the same time, it was emanating a violent aura. At the same level, the divine dragon isn't afraid of any living animal. A cold look surfaced on Wang Xian, while he did not reduce his attacking momentum. Growl! The conger eel opened its mouth widely and charged towards Wang Xian without hesitating. Go and die! Wang Xian extended his dragon claws and grabbed onto its head directly. SSS. However, at this moment, a blue ray of light emitted from the conger eel's head. Within the glow was a strong electric current. At that instant, Wang Xian could feel his dragon claw going numb. His entire body even started shivering. SSS. The conger eel opened its mouth widely and bit towards Wang Xian's head. Growl! Giving out a soft roar, Wang Xian opened his mouth too and charged ahead. Crack, crack! He ripped the conger eel's head out with a bite and quickly devoured it. Seeking its own death, Wang Xian showed disdain at the level 3 conger eel which was being arrogant. At this moment, only a level 5 or 6 conger eel would be able to deal with him. The coral reefs in this region are chaotic and everywhere. It's very suitable for lobsters and conger eels to survive. If there are more lobsters here, I wouldn't have to worry about getting top-quality lobsters in the restaurant. Wang Xian looked to the surroundings and instructed Clam Girl to search the surroundings. Dragon King, there's a lobster right here! Clam Girl quickly brought him the news. Moving his body, he swam over directly. He saw Clam Girl had captured a lobster that was over 1 meter long. Ornate spiny lobsters. It is the expensive ornate spiny lobsters and weighs about 2 catties. It seems like there would be quite an amount of lobsters in this area. Looking at this colorful lobster, excitement started filling Wang Xian. Chapter 45, Crawfish Soldiers. The market price for this lobster can hit more than $1,000. The unit price is more expensive than the Australian lobster. Ornate spiny lobsters were of the highest value within the domestic waters, followed by the Chinese lobsters, a name of a lobster. You will control this lobster and continue with the search. Wang Xian commanded the Clam Girl and continued the search in their surroundings. The colors of the surrounding corals were very close to that of the lobsters. Hence, it was not easy to spot them. If the lobsters remained still and hidden among the coral reefs, it would not be easy to spot them. After all, Wang Xian was only a tiny divine dragon. Without divine sense, he could not scan and check the surrounding situation. Should I upgrade my eyes with dragon energy so that they can have the Byakugan effect in Naruto's anime? Wang Xian pondered to himself. He could use dragon energy to upgrade and strengthen any parts of his body, including the eyes. However, it would require a lot of dragon energy to do so. After some considerations, he gave up. His current level was too low, and he had too little of dragon energy. Wang Xian observed the surrounding with his sharp eyes. Some of the colorful fish were swimming around him. There is a lobster over there. It should be the painted spiny lobster. The price for this is about $300 per catty. Not too low for it. The dragon power enveloped the area, and Wang Xian commanded that painted spiny lobster to swim over. Looking at the 20 centimeters lobster, a smile surfaced on Wang Xian's face. Perhaps the lobsters here were suitable to supply for the use of his restaurant. There is a conger eel. A cold smile surfaced when Wang Xian saw an eel roaming slowly between the corals. That was a level 2 eel which was smaller than the previous one just now. He swam over and devoured the eel which did not put up even the slightest resistance. Carry on with the search. One by one, Wang Xian found the lobsters and caught 20 of them. All of them were controlled by the ability of the Clam Girl. It only took about half an hour to catch 20 of them from this corner of the area. This entire zone with reefs and rocks seems like a treasure land. A glimmer of excitement flashed in Wang Xian's eyes. He moved forward and saw a huge coral reef in front of him. The entire reef was protruding out from the seabed for about 5 meters, and it was covered with colorful corals. We should be able to find lobsters over there. With a swift movement, Wang Xian swam over. When he was over there, he was stunned. Filled in between the crevices of the coral reefs were at least a few dozen lobsters, including painted spiny lobster, ornate spiny lobsters, and Chinese lobsters. Among those, the biggest lobsters are ornate spiny lobsters. That must be at least 5 to 6 catties. This is a breeding ground for lobsters. It was difficult to come across ornate spiny lobsters of such a size for decades. This was a region that had yet to be fished by anyone. As such, the number of lobsters here was beyond his expectation. Wang Xian was thrilled. With a jerk forward, he enveloped the area with his dragon energy and commanded the lobsters to follow behind. As the lobsters were moving slowly, Wang Xian had to reduce his speed too. He continued to swim forward and spotted a larger reef area ahead. Based on the experience just now, that might be a breeding ground for the lobsters. Wang Xian's eyes brightened up as he led the lobsters to the coral reef. This is... When he arrived at that reef, he was stunned by what he saw. Not many lobsters resided here. Instead, it was an ornate spiny lobster. Beside this lobster was a conger eel, and it was even larger than the one he met previously. The conger eel was about 3.5 meters long and was considered to be a giant conger eel. Its body was bulky and looked like an underwater monster. However, the eel was not the only one that shocked him. There was an ornate spiny lobster as well. The size of the lobster of at least 1.5 meters was beyond his expectation. In history, the largest lobster recorded was only 1.2 meters at 40 catties. The ornate spiny lobster before him should weigh about 50 catties at least. Its body seemed durable and robust, especially the pair of colorful lobster claws which looked like a sharp weapon. The colorful body seemed exceptionally noble too. However, this lobster was a little terrified as it was confronting the conger eel before it. Conger eel, level 4. Extractable dragon energy, 548. Ornate spiny lobster, level 3. Extractable dragon energy, 346. A level 4 conger eel and a level 3 lobster. Wang Xian was shocked by this terrifying conger eel. Not even any of the ordinary sharks would dare to provoke it. This level 3 ornate spiny lobster was also out of his knowledge. The ocean is really amazing, occupying a 70% surface area of Earth and with areas that were unknown to mankind. Besides that, various unbelievable species can be found in it. Just as Wang Xian exclaimed, the giant conger eel struck at the ornate spiny lobster swiftly. The giant ornate spiny lobster lifted its claws hastily and lurched forward. SST. At this time, the body of the conger eel gave off blinding blue sparks. The ornate spiny lobster retreated speedily as it was fearful of the blue sparks. The conger eel spun its heavy body around and lurched forward again. This time, the ornate spiny lobster raised its claws and clamped at the eel's body. What is the value of such a large lobster? It could be the greatest asset of the restaurant. Wang Xian stared at the ornate spiny lobster with bright eyes. On seeing the offensive conger eel, he moved his body and attacked it. Roar! Before the conger eel could launch its attack, it quickly turned around and glared coldly at Wang Xian, who struck. Wang Xian did not care. He was not afraid of a level 4 conger eel. Bang, bang, bang! The conger eel looked at Wang Xian with fear. Yet, its eyes were full of greed. With its body flashing with blue lights, it swept out to Wang Xian. If the voltage from a level 3 conger eel can cause numbness, the voltage from a level 4 conger eel should be much stronger. Wang Xian moved away and dodged the attack from the conger eel. He extended out his claws and scratched the body of the eel. SST. The sharp claws drew a long and bloody mark on the body. Roar! The conger eel spun its head fiercely and rapidly. It opened its mouth, which was full of teeth, and bit on Wang Xian. Wang Xian raised its claws and charged forward. Crack! At the same time, blue sparks were flickering from the mouth of the conger eel. Wang Xian was startled and ducked quickly. Shoo! Just then, he saw a water ball fired right into the mouth of the conger eel. Wang Xian was slightly stunned. He knew it was the clam girl who had made her move. With a swift movement, The dragon claws grabbed the conger eel by its neck. He opened the dragon mouth and bit down. Extracted 548 dragon energy. Wang Xian revealed a smile on his face. He looked at the ornate spiny lobster again with a sudden thought. The lobster was fleeing in horror when it saw Wang Xian swallow the mighty conger eel in one gulp. Don't think of escaping, little lobster. Seeing that you're gifted by nature, I'll keep you as one of my crawfish soldiers. End note. One Byakugan is a power originating in the Japanese Naruto animation. It is characterized by their enlarged and featureless white irises. When activated, it will give a powerful range of vision, magnifying up to cellular level on its targets, or viewing things at great distances. Chapter 46 Pod of Lobsters. Within the seas, a 1.5-meter gigantic ornate spiny lobster was scampering away rapidly in the water. Its actions looked extremely comical. Still trying to escape? Wang Xian swayed his tail and caught up with this ornate spiny lobster directly, and pointed his dragon claw at it. This lobster held up its large pincers in fear and looked at Wang Xian in horror with its pair of tiny eyes. He was petrified. That horrifying conger eel was its natural nemesis, and was eaten by this golden-colored monster just a while ago. How could it possibly go up against this monster? Growl! Wang Xian let out a roar as he shrouded this lobster with his dragon power. The timid ornate spiny lobster shriveled immediately. If its intelligence had manifested, it would definitely beg for mercy and claim to have parents and kids to take care of. Submit to me, the Dragon King! A supreme intention was directed into his mind. The ornate spiny lobster shrank its body instinctively, and placed his large pincers down as it squatted in front of Wang Xian. That's the way. Wang Xian revealed a faint smile, and opened his mouth gradually. A drop of dragon blood flew out from its mouth. The essence blood was emitting a golden glow, and fell on the head of the ornate spiny lobster. Don't resist it! Wang Xian directed the words into his mind. The ornate spiny lobster didn't dare to move recklessly, and simply stayed there without moving as the golden-colored dragon blood entered its body. Success! Wang Xian smiled. This ornate spiny lobster had become his second subordinate. This lobster hasn't got its intelligence manifested and couldn't cultivate. I have to use dragon energy to upgrade it and manifest its intelligence for him to pick up cultivation arts. Wang Xian thought to himself. This lobster was different from the clam girl. Clam girl already had her intelligence manifested. Therefore, Wang Xian didn't have to use dragon energy to manifest her intelligence after subduing her. Manifesting intelligence would exhaust a large amount of dragon energy. Wang Xian placed his dragon claw on the head of that ornate spiny lobster. Streams of dragon energy entered its body and strengthened its intelligence and body. Crack, 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 crack. Cracking sounds came from the body of the ornate spiny lobsters. Glows of 7 colors shimmered on its body as its body grew gradually to 2 meters. It does look like a divine lobster! Wang Xian laughed as he saw the glow of the lobster. Dragon King! Just as he had exhausted about 700 points of dragon energy, Wang Xian heard a feint will reach him. Wang Xian immediately stopped the upgrade using dragon energy, and looked at the ornate spiny lobster. Little lobster, is that you? Dragon King, it's me. The ornate spiny lobster moved its long antennae as a response. Haha, great. I shall impart you a cultivation art. Your claws are pretty sharp. In that case, I shall impart to you the cultivation arts of Metal Elemental Divine Dragon. With just a thought, the cultivation arts of Metal Dragon, a part of Divine Dragon transformation, was imparted on the ornate spiny lobster. Crawfish Soldier, Level 4. Art of Cultivation, Metal Dragon Transformation. Superpower, ability to control lobster race whose level is lower than own existing level. Through the upgrades using dragon energy, ornate spiny lobster's level has increased by 1. Moreover, its body also looks much stronger. This was because I have used dragon energy to upgrade it directly. This also allows it to awaken its first superpower to control a lobster race whose level is lower than its own existing level. Wang Xian looked at the superpower of Crawfish Soldier, and excitement flashed in his eyes. This surprise was within his expectation. After subduing Clam Girl, he did not use dragon energy to upgrade her abilities. She relied on herself to gather dragon energy and awaken two superpowers. One of them was the ability to control a clam race whose level was lower than her own existing level, and the other was water control. As for Crawfish Soldier, Wang Xian used dragon energy to upgrade its abilities directly. This awakened its first superpower directly and allowed it to control a lobster race whose level was lower than its own existing level. This was the strength of the divine dragon that could suppress all things. With the divine dragon's bloodline, animals which practice divine dragon transformation could all possess the horrifying strength of suppressing its own race whose level is lower than its own. Now that I have two marine races subdued, let's just give you all a name. Clam Girl shall be called Roving Girl, and you shall be called Roving Lobster. Hee hee! Wang Xian smiled and looked at the roving lobster in front of him. He immediately instructed, "Go and gather all the lobsters in the vicinity and bring them over." "Yes, Dragon King!" Roving Lobster nodded his head before moving his body and scampering out. Although Roving Lobster looked a little comical while moving in water, its speed was 5 to 6 times faster than before. After the upgrades of dragon energy and obtaining the cultivation arts of metal dragon transformation, this lobster was destined to roam the 9 skies in the future. With Roving Lobster, it would be more convenient to capture lobsters in the future. Excitement flashed in Wang Xian's eyes. This was one of the reasons why he didn't mind expending a large amount of dragon energy to upgrade a single Crawfish Soldier. Wang Xian waited quietly on the spot. After 40 to 50 minutes, he sensed Roving Lobster rushing over from a distant place. After another 10 minutes, he saw a 2 meters rainbow lobster headed towards him with 2 long antennae like a divine lobster. Behind him was a pod of densely packed large lobsters. 4 species of lobsters, namely ornate spiny lobsters, scalloped spiny lobsters, Chinese lobsters and painted spiny lobsters, were separated into groups in front of him. The scene was grandiose, and there were at least 10,000 of them. Wang Xian looked at this huge pod of lobsters in disbelief. "Dragon King!" Roving Lobster swam to the side of Wang Xian and stopped on the rock respectfully. "Great! Haha, so many lobsters! I'm rich! Just these 10,000 lobsters alone could be sold for several tens of millions." Wang Xian's eyes lit up. Just these lobsters in front of him would bring him astronomical profits. "These are just lobsters in the vicinity. There are more at places further away," Roving Lobster said. "Haha!" Wang Xian laughed in ecstasy. These lobsters were marine animals without intelligence. Therefore, Wang Xian didn't feel a tinge of guilt for selling them for money. In the world of marine animals, large fish fed on small fish and small fish fed on shrimps. These were the primeval rules of survival. I won't be lacking supplies of lobsters for first-grade restaurant in the future. Also, I'll be able to go look for other top-quality ingredients. Wang Xian looked at the large pot of lobsters in front of him and revealed a smile. Within first-grade restaurant, he had settled the supply of top-quality lobsters. However, this wouldn't be enough. He still had to look for other top-quality ingredients in order to make first-grade restaurant become the best and most famous restaurant in Rivertown. Roving Lobster, cultivate diligently at this place. Roving Girl, follow me and continue with our search, Wang Xian said to the Roving Lobster. After which, he brought Roving Girl along and started exploring the surroundings. At this place, there were quite a number of other marine animals other than the large number of lobsters. Moreover, he wanted to see how large this region was and the approximate number of lobsters in the area. That is? After roaming around the chaotic coral reefs area for 2 hours, Wang Xian still hadn't covered the entire region. Based on his estimates, this place had a radius of at least 30 kilometers. Wang Xian finally found several precious fish after devouring and looking for top-quality ingredients for hours. They were wild giant yellow croaker fish. A total of 5 yellow croaker fish had a golden glow on the surface of their body, and each one weighed 3 to 4 catties. I'm so lucky today! Moving his body, Wang Xian swam over directly. He shrouded the 5 precious yellow croaker fish with his dragon power and suppressed them. Chapter 47 Guan Shuqing's Problem. Wild giant yellow croakers, in the present, were almost extinct. Any one of them with a weight of 3 catties and above could fetch a price of $30,000 to $40,000. $10,000 per catty would definitely be the top quality fish in the world. Wang Xian looked at the 10 wild giant yellow croakers that he dominated with a faint smile on his face. Having stayed in the ocean for more than 17 hours, the biggest benefit that he reaped was roving lobster and the lobsters. Besides that, he also acquired 10 wild giant yellow croakers. These wild giant yellow croakers were worth at least $300,000. Wang Xian did not bring all the lobsters up. Instead, he brought those wild giant yellow croakers back to shore. He got Roving Lobster to guard the entire lobsters area and commanded Roving Girl to look for top-quality ingredients during her free time. Wang Xian transferred the image of abalones, wild giant yellow croaker, and Chinese bahaba fish to Roving Girl so that she could search for them. After coming out of the sea, it was 9 a.m. the next day. He touched his empty stomach, as he had already missed 2 meals in a day. Wang Xian put on his clothes and headed to the place where he had parked his Harley motorcycle. How nice it would be if I had a house by the sea. In this way, I wouldn't have to go through the trouble. It would be best to have a fish farm or fishing boat at sea. Next time, I can better explain the source of the seafood if I put them on the fishing boat. Wang Xian was pondering to himself. He took out his phone to check the price of fishing boats. There were several messages on the phone. In addition to Guan Shuqing's messages, there were messages from Shuqing. Shuqing sent him a message asking if he had time to meet. Subsequently, he followed up with some warm greetings again. Wang Xian chuckled after he saw these and returned a few polite replies. He rode all the way back to first-grade restaurant and saw Guan Shuqing and manager Huang exchanging conversations as soon as he entered the restaurant. On seeing him, Guan Shuqing was displeased and grumbled. "Where did you go? You didn't reply to my messages since yesterday." Wang Xian saw some resentment flashing in her eyes. He chuckled and said, "I have been busy, and I was too busy to look at my phone." "Who will believe you? You're so busy that you can't even look at your phone." Guan Shuqing stared at him with disbelief. "It's true. I'm not lying to you." Wang Xian walked over without a word and swung the bag of wild giant yellow croakers in his hand. "To get some seafood back, I was busy throughout the night. I didn't even sleep well last night. Manager Huang, bring it to the kitchen and keep it. We're not selling these for the time being." He smiled to Guan Shuqing as he spoke to Manager Huang. "Yes, Director Huang." Manager Huang trotted over with curiosity as he took over the bag in Wang Xian's hand. "This is..." When he saw the giant yellow croakers, his eyes were wide open as he was taken aback. "Director Huang, these are giant yellow croakers?" "Yes, wild giant yellow croaker. Keep them properly. They should be dying." Wang Xian nodded. "Sure, Director Huang. You're awesome. Wild giant yellow croaker is so rare that it is hard to catch even one. You have got 10 of them, and each of them is at least 3 catties. Director Huang, you're simply superb." Manager Huang spoke with surprise. Then, he quickly took the fish back to the kitchen. When the main chef saw the fish, he was also shocked. The new boss was awesome. He had managed to get 10 wild giant yellow croakers in just a day, and these are all the priceless top-quality ingredients. "You got 10 wild giant yellow croakers?" asked Guan Shuqing shockingly, as she knew about the scarcity of the giant yellow croakers as well. "Yes, I got them through tremendous effort." Wang Xian nodded. "Wang Xian, you're now superb," said Guan Shuqing with her mouth agape. "Heh, it's nothing. You'll be well fed if you follow my lead." Wang Xian smirked. "You're such an outstanding man now. I'm sure many girls will take a fancy to you in the future." Suddenly, Guan Shuqing looked at him, feeling lost. Her? Wang Xian was slightly stunned. Subsequently, he joked and said, "That's for sure. Just that I'm not sure if there is anyone as pretty as our Guan Shuqing who will take a fancy to me." What a glib tongue. Guan Shuqing heard his words and chuckled. "Well, I'm going to check and make a comparison with the old data. I cannot take your salary for granted. I will also take a look at the office." Wang Xian came to a small office with 3 tables, among which there was one desk that belonged to him. Wang Xian picked up the old data and studied it. The daily sales figure of first-grade restaurant was about $150,000. Such turnover is considered to be high, at $50 million a year. Yet, the profit margin was minimal at 12% to 13% of the revenue. Expenses include taxes, staff wages, in-store expenses, and the procurement cost. With 50 employees, the staff wages cost almost $20,000. Procurement expenses were even higher than this. Take caviar for instance, there was basically no profit in selling it. The first-grade restaurant could enjoy its reputation because of the excellent quality in the ingredients and the culinary skills of the chef. Director Li was a very enterprising person. He hired 3 award-winning gold medalist chefs. The so-called gold medalist chefs were chefs who were qualified to be the main chefs in 5-star hotels. The yearly salary of these 3 cooks was around $500,000. With the increase in cost, the reputation of the restaurant was on the rise too. 5 to 7 million profits in a year was considered high to a restaurant. An average restaurant would make more than 25% of profits. The first-grade restaurant's profit margin is still relatively low. If we can double the profits, we will have $13 to $14 million in income. Wang Xian was thinking to himself. He remained confident with first-grade restaurant. Once their top-quality ingredients were ready, they could make at least 35% profits. By that time, the yearly earnings could hit over $20 million. During the day, Wang Xian had been staying in the restaurant to study how to make money. Guan Shuqing was also looking at the various data. Ring! When Wang Xian was about to get Guan Shuqing for dinner at 6 p.m., Guan Shuqing's phone rang. Soon after, he heard the reluctant voice of Guan Shuqing. "Wang Xian, I had to make a trip home." After she hung up the phone, Guan Shuqing had a troubled face. She apologized to Wang Xian. "I might not be able to come tomorrow either. I'm sorry. I just started my work for a day." "Her? What's up? Anything wrong?" asked Wang Xian with concern. He was slightly stunned when he saw her expression. "Something about my parents." "I'm sorry," Guan Shuqing replied with guilt. "It's okay. Get going." Wang Xian shook his head and assured her. "Well, I'll come back the day after." Guan Shuqing nodded. Wang Xian nodded as he did not take it to heart. Guan Shuqing's house was situated within an old district of the Eastern River District in the river town. They used to be staying in a high-end, duplex residential building in the city center, but they had to sell their house to return the debt after her father's company encountered some problems and went bankrupt. "Dad, Mom?" When she opened the door, Guan Shuqing saw her parents sitting on the sofa. The middle-aged man was smoking, and his hair was a mess. The fact that he had turned from a billionaire to a penniless man had struck a huge blow to her father. Even her mother was impacted by this significantly. "Shuqing is here." The middle-aged man put out the cigarette in his hand immediately. He stood up and said, "Get yourself dolled up. We're going to have dinner. Come, Shuqing. Wear something nice today. We have an important dinner." Guan Shuqing's mother said to her too. "All right." Guan Shuqing nodded with bitterness on her face. Chapter 48. Is this a confession? The midsummer night was cooling down. Guan Shuqing walked out from a hotel. A chilling breeze blew past her body, causing her to shiver a little. Looking at the bright moon in the sky, she suddenly felt a little helpless. Brother Wu, please be careful." At this moment, her father's voice sounded from behind her. He was walking in front of a middle-aged man, and was constantly trying to get on the good books of the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man nodded his head arrogantly and patted on the shoulders of his father. All right, brother, if I can help, I'll definitely help you. Thank you, Brother Wu. Thank you, Brother Wu. Please be careful. Sister Wu, you too. Guan Shuqing's father was full of smiles as he spoke passionately at them. Shuqing, see you in the morning tomorrow. Behind the middle-aged man and woman, a juvenile stared at Guan Shuqing fervently. Guan Shuqing felt uncomfortable at the gaze of the juvenile but still nodded her head slightly. The edge of the juvenile's mouth arched upwards as he said, I'll go and fetch you in the morning tomorrow. Guan Shuqing and her family saw the middle-aged man family leave. Guan Shuqing looked at her and frowned. From here on, be a little more enthusiastic around Wu Qian and don't be so cold to him. Dad! Guan Shuqing looked at her father with displeasure and answered resolutely. I don't like him. Huh! When Guan Shuqing heard her, his face sank. It's fine that you don't like him now. Feelings can be developed over time. Upon hearing her father's reply, Guan Shuqing's body stiffened up. Shuqing, Wu Qian is still a pretty good guy. Moreover, Wu family's conditions are good. Guan Shuqing's mother tried her best to convince Guan Shuqing. Mom, are you all going to sacrifice the happiness of your daughter for the company? Guan Shuqing asked in a pitiful tone. After raising you to this age, you should be thinking about your father. Could you bear to let us stay in that old house till we die? It's time for you to think about us after raising you to this age, Guan Shuqing said to her in a solemn tone. If Wu Qian doesn't reject the idea, have the wedding completed as soon as possible. What? When she heard her father, she looked at him with disbelief. Dad, I'm still studying and am just 21 years old. Are you asking me to get married now? You are going to get married eventually, so what's wrong with getting married now? Guan Shuqing stared at her. No, definitely not. I won't marry someone I don't like. Guan Shuqing shook her head incessantly, and her body started leaning back. I don't like him and I will never marry him. Shuqing. Guan Shuqing's mother saw how her daughter reacted and couldn't help but feel her heart aching. She walked over quickly and said, Oh daughter, we are not asking you to get married to him right now. You guys can try to develop feelings for each other first. I. Guan Shuqing looked at her parents, gritted her teeth and exclaimed, I already have someone I like. What? When Guan Shuqing heard her words, he stared at her intensely. I have someone that I like. Guan Shuqing gritted her teeth and said resolutely, Someone you like? Great! If the guy that you are fond of has family conditions that are as good as Wu family and could help us, I won't object to it. If he doesn't, I advise you to give up on this idea as soon as possible. After raising you for 20 years, can't you just help out the family? Let me tell you this. Don't even start having second thoughts about this. My words are final. Guan Shuqing looked at her and growled angrily. Guan Shuqing's expression turned pale and tears were welling up in her eyes. Shuqing, your dad and mom are doing this for your own good. Mother Guan walked over and patted the shoulders of her own daughter. For my own good? Asking me to marry someone I don't like is for my own good? Using me as chips in exchange for benefits is for my own good? Guan Shuqing felt that her heart was in pain suddenly. Since the unfortunate event happened to her family, she felt that her parents had changed greatly. Wang Xian! She shouted helplessly in her mind. If Wang Xian's family conditions are better than Wu family, then my parents. But Wu family had assets of $400 to $500 billion. Although Wang Xian is rich, there's a clear difference between him and the Wu family, not to mention helping my family. No, I definitely wouldn't marry someone I don't like. Guan Shuqing sat in the car and her brain was cluttered. It was when she was back in her own room that she finally regained some consciousness. A determined look appeared on her face gradually as she took out her phone and tapped on WeChat. Wang Xian, are you there? She sent the message over anxiously. At 10:30 p.m., Wang Xian had just returned to his dormitory room after bathing and happened to see Guan Shuqing's message. He immediately replied. Yeah, what's the matter? Are you all right? He asked, concerned. Not fine. Guan Shuqing replied. After which, she asked anxiously, "Do you like me?" What the? When Wang Xian saw this message, he was completely surprised. What's her intention behind asking this question? His expression changed rapidly and didn't know how to reply. He would be lying if he said he had no feelings for a beautiful girl like Guan Shuqing. Did you have too much alcohol? However, Wang Xian didn't reply yes directly. He sensed that Guan Shuqing was acting a little weird and wasn't her normal self. There's always a reason behind an abnormal behavior. Therefore, Wang Xian cleverly did not answer her question directly. Guan Shuqing was a little disappointed at this reply and she added immediately, "If you could earn $50 million within 3 years, is it okay if you marry me?" Cough cough. What the fuck? Wang Xian was drinking water when he saw the reply and choked on it immediately. If he was surprised before, he was shocked now. What the fuck? What's with Guan Shuqing today? Why is she speaking so weirdly? Is this a joke? Wang Xian was making guesses in his mind and felt that the weather was a little erratic the last few days. He answered in a jokingly manner, "Forget about 3 years. It shouldn't be a problem for me to earn $50 million within 2 years or perhaps even within a year. At that time, will I be able to take a great beauty like you as my wife?" Hee hee hee. When Guan Shuqing saw Wang Xian's reply, she finally had a faint smile on her face. "Yes, you can. Haha, then you will be too simple. Wow. If the guys in school knew about it, wouldn't they die of envy? The goddess of the school would be marrying me." Wang Xian answered in a comical manner. "Yeah." When Guan Shuqing saw his reply, she smiled wider. She lay on her bed and replied, "My parents are asking for a guy I dislike to go out with me tomorrow. At that time, please accompany me." "Sure, absolutely not a problem." Wang Xian answered directly despite feeling that the message was a little strange. "Then we have agreed on this. This baby is going to sleep now. Good night, Xiao Xian. I'll call you again in the morning. Remember to wake up early." When Guan Shuqing sent that message out, her face turned red. Although Xiao Xian isn't as successful as Wu family right now, if he could earn $50 million in 2 to 3 years and I used death to force my parents would definitely not pressure me further. Moreover, they would also likely agree to us being together. After all, Xiao Xian is so capable despite his young age. Oh my God! When Wang Xian saw Guan Shuqing's last message, he could no longer hold back his emotions as he jumped upright. Although their relationship wasn't bad, they were still addressing each other using their full name. He would address her as Guan Shuqing, and she would address him as Wang Xian. With Guan Shuqing's personality, she wouldn't call him Xiao Xian and address herself as baby to him. The last message made Wang Xian's heart palpitate violently. He scrolled through the conversation log between the two of them and started pondering the details. Firstly, something must have happened to Guan Shuqing on her way home. Secondly, could it be that Guan Shuqing really likes me and that this was a confession? Ho ho ho. Wang Xian was in ecstasy. Chapter 49, Summer Sun Resort. I'm drop-dead handsome. The next morning, Wang Xian stood in front of the mirror, looking refreshed after a bath. Looking at himself in the mirror, he was pleased. While fiddling with his hairstyle, his phone suddenly rang. Wang Xian spun around and picked up his phone quickly. When he saw Guan Shuqing's number, a smile surfaced on his face. Hello, pretty Guan. Wang Xian squinted his eyes and said, Have you woken up? Yes, where are we going? Do you need me to pick you up? Wang Xian said with a smile. No, I'll be going with the annoying guy. Oh, I forgot to tell you yesterday that you're acting as my boyfriend today. Do you have any issues with that? No, I'm sure. Wang Xian chuckled. He had a sleepless night as he was thinking of what Guan Shuqing meant by what she said yesterday. He was rather into Guan Shuqing. But he was neither someone who could chat with girls easily nor the proactive type. Otherwise, Chi Chu Chu, whom he had been working together with, would have become his girlfriend. Wang Xian did not put much thought into this, but that did not mean that he did not have the desire. Now, he was fired up after Guan Shuqing tempted him. I'll send you the address. See you then. Guan Shuqing hung up after talking to him. Soon after, an address was sent to his WeChat. Guan Shuqing is back to herself today. That's odd. Women are always unpredictable. Wang Xian shook his head. He knew Guan Shuqing must have encountered some problems. Otherwise, she would not have said such a thing yesterday. However, he still remembered that she promised to marry him if he earned $50 million. That was not a difficult task for the present Wang Xian. Her? Summer Sun Resort? Isn't that the property of Shuqing and his family? Upon seeing the address sent by Guan Shuqing, Wang Xian was taken aback by surprise. What a coincidence! Wang Xian laughed as he headed outside. He rode to the old street and had his breakfast before he rode off to the Summer Sun Resort. When he arrived at the Summer Sun Resort, it was only about 9 a.m. He came to the car park at the entrance and parked his motorcycle there. Should I tell Shuqing? Wang Xian hesitated. After some considerations, he decided to let it go to avoid unnecessary troubles. He put the keys back in his pocket and headed to the entrance. Kite, don't run, stop! At this time, Wang Xian heard a shout and a cheerful cry from a kid behind him. I want to play! A kiddish voice was heard, and Wang Xian felt someone knocking into him and hugging his leg from behind. Watch out, watch out! Wang Xian turned around and saw a little boy hugging his thigh nervously. I'm sorry that I knocked into you. I almost fell too. As Wang Xian turned around, the little boy lifted his head and looked at him shyly. It's all right. Wang Xian looked at the cute and well-mannered boy. He could not help but to rub his head. Little Kite, why are you running so fast? Wait for your dad and grandpa. A middle-aged man and an elder walked out from a campervan. Along with them were two young men who looked like bodyguards in suits. Grandpa, Dad? Let's hurry up and play. The little boy released Wang Xian's leg and continued to run inside. You rascal! The middle-aged man sped up his pace and chased after him. He caught him in his arms. Listen to me. Stop running. Don't run, don't run. Following behind, the old man came along with a cane. Wang Xian smiled when he saw the cute little boy staggering as he ran. Then, Wang Xian headed for the resort. Brother Qin, old Qin. At this time, another middle-aged man greeted them at the entrance. Isn't he the father of Shuqing, Shuqiahua? Wang Xian was a little surprised to see the middle-aged man. As Shuqiahua was ushering the three people, he also saw Wang Xian. He was slightly taken aback before he walked over. Benefactor Wang Xian. Just call me Wang Xian. Wang Xian chuckled at the way he addressed him. Sure, are you here for leisure? Asked Shuqiahua with a smile on his face. Yes, I came here to look around. Wang Xian nodded. Why don't I get Xiao Jing to accompany you around? Answered Shuqiahua hurriedly. No, it's okay. I have to wait for my friend. Mr. Shui, you can ignore me. Wang Xian smiled as he declined. Sure, then I shall not bother you anymore. Enjoy yourself and let us know if you need anything. Shuqiahua nodded hurriedly. All right. Wang Xian nodded and headed inside. Shuqiahua watched as Wang Xian entered. With a slight hesitation, he fished out his phone and texted his son to entertain Wang Xian eventually. Brother Shui! Just then, the middle-aged man, not far away, knit his eyebrows and called out for Shuqiahua with the little boy in his arms. Just now, Shuqiahua was supposed to greet them, but he cast them aside when he saw a young man. Such a way of doing things was impolite. However, they did not say anything. After all, they were here to ask for a favor. Old Qin, Brother Qin, I'm really sorry. Shuqiahua quickly responded to his calling by walking over quickly. In Rivertown, not many people were qualified for him to greet them personally. Old Qin was exceptional. Qin family was much more influential than Shui family. Hence, he did not dare to be a poor host. I'm really sorry. Just now, I met my benefactor. So I had to greet him personally. Shuqiahua explained with apologies. Oh? A benefactor? The middle-aged man looked at the figure in front of him with curiosity. Never mind, I heard that old Shui not only regained his health, but he also made some improvements. I'm here to check on him. Old Qin shook his cane, not minding at all. Sure, old Qin. My father is waiting inside. This way, please. Shui Jiahua looked at the little boy in the arms of the middle-aged man. Naturally, he knew the purpose of old Qin to come personally over here. Hence, he quickly led the way. Summer Sun Resort is quite a posh place. An usher was leading in front of him as Wang Xian observed the surroundings with slight surprise. The entire resort was luxurious, surrounded by rockery, streams, and a few trails. There were streams of crystal-clear water on both sides of the road with a myriad of fish swimming in it. Refined and posh-looking housing could be found ahead. Summer Sun Resort was situated near the sea. He could vaguely see the beach that was full of various activities like surfing. Not only that, there was a small restaurant on the sea with several tourists having their beverages. Surrounding the resorts were tall trees which made the place beautiful. There were some ponds with crystal-clear water too. The entire place was relaxing, and the environment was elegant. It's a 5-star resort indeed. The environment is really awesome, Wang Xian exclaimed softly. Sir, if you are waiting for your friends, you can rest in the waiting area for the time being. The usher brought Wang Xian to a waiting area. Chapter 50 Treatment. Wang Xian sat at the waiting area within Summer Sun Resort, and the usher brought him a cup of water. He gave Guan Shuqing a call and informed her about it. Moreover, she hadn't left her house. Wang Xian took out his phone and started playing to kill his boredom. Big brother Wang Xian! At this moment, a voice sounded. Under the astonishment looks of the ushers in the surrounding, their young boss was running towards a young man. Huh! Wang Xian lifted his head and saw Shui Jing running towards him. He smiled and thought that Shui Jing was probably here under orders of his father. Big brother, why didn't you let me know that you are coming? I would have come to pick you up at the entrance. Shui Jing ran over passionately and said. A friend invited me here so I didn't disturb you. Wang Xian smiled and answered Shui Jing. As the other party was so zealous and warm to him, he naturally would treat him with sincerity. You aren't disturbing me. Not at all. I happen to be here anyway. Shui Jing laughed as he walked. Big brother, are you waiting for someone? Yeah, I'm waiting for someone. Wang Xian nodded his head. Big brother, why don't I bring you around for a tour since you are free now? Moreover, my grandfather has asked me to thank you again. Since my grandfather was treated by you, he has made a breakthrough in his cultivation level. Shui Jing said with gratitude. Really? In that case, I'll have to congratulate old Shui. Wang Xian nodded his head with astonishment. Dragon energy was a top-grade type of energy. While treating old Shui's injuries, he also strengthened his heart. This was what allowed him to achieve the breakthrough. Big brother, let me bring you around for a tour. I'm guessing this is your first time here at our Summer Sun Resort. Let me introduce you to the various sites. Shui Jing asked. All right, I'll be troubling you then. Wang Xian hesitated before nodding his head. Not at all. Shui Jing shook his head, stood up and led the way immediately. This resort is pretty good and the area is pretty big, Wang Xian remarked while following behind Shui Jing and listening to his explanation. This resort of ours is the largest in the entire province. Our Shui family invested $1 billion to build it in the past. Currently, our Shui family are relying on this resort and the 5-star hotel in the city center, Shui Jing explained. Wang Xian nodded his head. Looking at this, Shui family's assets should be at least $1 billion. There were many rich people in the country, and many of these rich people were not known as they kept a low profile. Shui family could be considered as a family that kept a rather low profile. They didn't have a lot of properties, but their properties weren't small. The scenery by the seaside was extremely beautiful after modification. The resort houses in the vicinity were all luxurious and exquisite. Large trees and a clean swimming pool. There were various kinds of entertainment. The restaurant by the sea was a great place to go to in the resort. When winter came, there would even be a hot spring. This place was great for tours for all seasons in a year. Big brother, would you like to go to the room at the side to take a break? My father and grandfather are both here today. If it's convenient for you, let's have lunch together today. The Shui family would like to make Wang Xian a friend. Shui Jing had also witnessed his strength, and therefore tried to invite him and make him closer with them. Wang Xian also knew about the thoughts of Shui Jing and the Shui family. Even though the other party wanted him as a friend, he wasn't against the idea. To him, there were still a lot of benefits from getting to know an additional friend. Sure, my friend hasn't arrived yet. However, let's talk about lunch again later. If I have the time, I will definitely agree to it. Wang Xian nodded his head. All right, big brother Wang Xian, this way please. Excitement flashed past Shui Jing's eyes as he replied quickly. Big brother Wang Xian, the two most luxurious rooms of our resorts are here. One of them is this, and the other just beside. You can come over directly with your family membership card. Shui Jing pointed at the two luxurious rooms as he explained. Wang Xian looked over and nodded his head. After which, he walked into one of the luxurious rooms. Within the room, Shui Jiahua was sitting in the main hall with a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was smoking and had a worried look on him. Brother Wang Xian! When Shui Jiahua saw Wang Xian walk in, he was filled with surprise. He stood up immediately and went over to welcome him. Mr. Shui, please take a seat. Wang Xian replied immediately. Come, come. Shui Jiahua smiled and nodded his head. He immediately took the teacup from the table, poured tea in it, and passed it to Wang Xian personally. Brother Wang Xian, take a seat too. Sorry for disturbing Mr. Shui. Wang Xian nodded his head. He felt a little weird about his enthusiasm as he sat down. Not at all, not at all. Shui Jiahua waved his hand immediately. Authentic Longjing tea, have a try. I won't stand on ceremony then. Wang Xian nodded his head. The middle-aged man by the side looked at Wang Xian with surprise. This was the second time he saw Wang Xian. He met him for the first time at the entrance, and Shui Jiahua left them aside just to greet this young man. Shui Jiahua even poured him tea personally and addressed him with deference. Even when facing his own father, he had never been so enthusiastic. He looked over inquisitively. Wah, wah, wah. At this moment, the crying sounds of a child propagated over. Soon after, a guy with his upper body naked ran out of the room. Little kite, don't run! Grandpa will bring you out to play. Let's go! Behind him, an old man with a walking stick walked out and called to the little guy. Dad, so itchy and pain. The little guy looked at his father and ran over with tears all over his face. It's all right, everything will be fine soon, my son. The middle-aged man carried the little guy, patted his back and was consoling him. Wang Xian looked at the small boy inquisitively. He noticed that his entire body was strangely red. Brother Wang Xian, you are here? Old Shui walked out of the room and saw Wang Xian. He had a shocked expression as he quickly made his way over. Old Shui, sorry for bothering you. Wang Xian nodded at Shui Liangren. Clearly, he didn't know that Wang Xian had come. Father, we happened to meet while fetching old Qin previously. Therefore, I asked Shui Jing to go and receive him. Shui Jiahua stood up, walked to his father's side and spoke softly. Shui Liangren's eyes lit up. Wah, wah. Dad, so hot, so hot. Let's go swimming, swimming. The crying sounds of that little boy sounded once again. He choked for a moment but soon started crying loudly again. Wang Xian's attention was once again attracted by that little boy. He frowned and hesitated before extending his hand over. Hey pal, come and let brother take a look. Huh! When the middle-aged man heard Wang Xian, he frowned. Old Qin, who had a walking stick with him, looked at Wang Xian with doubts on his face. However, Shui Liangren was stunned. He commented immediately. Quick! Shao Qin, come and let brother Wang Xian take a look. When the middle-aged man heard old Shui, He was slightly shocked and turned to his father. Old Qin also looked at Old Shui in surprise. However, Old Shui wasn't paying attention as he introduced the little one to Wang Xian. Brother Wang Xia, little Kite is Old Qin's grandson. He has a congenital illness and the symptoms are really strange. Currently, we can only use internal energy to alleviate the effects of the illness. Why don't you take a look at it? Chapter 51 Making Friends. Old Shui, who is this young chap? Seeing that Old Shui was ignoring him, Old Shui knit his brows slightly. He walked over and asked the question softly when he saw Wang Xian reach out to touch his grandson. A young expert. Old Shui paused before he uttered the words to Old Qin. Old Qin was slightly stunned. A young expert? The term coming out from Old Shui was extremely unusual given that his strength was ranked top 5 in Rivertown. Moreover, he had made a breakthrough in his strength too. As such, he looked at the juvenile with surprise. Wang Xian found out about the little boy's condition after he injected some dragon energy into his body. There was something congenital growing in his right kidney, and it connected his kidneys together. This caused kidney failure for the little boy. Just now, Old Shui must have been using his internal energy to nourish him so as to alleviate the problem. However, this was not a long-term solution, and it did not resolve the root problem. I can remove it with my dragon energy, but it would consume 50 to 60 points. Wang Xian pondered to himself as he lifted his chin to look at the two elders. Wang Xian, can you treat the grandson of Old Qin? Young chap, any ways to do it? The two elders asked Wang Xian quickly. Old Qin, in particular, was looking forward to his answer. Wang Xian nodded slowly. Yes, there is a way. Really? Can you really cure my grandson's disease? Upon hearing Wang Xian, the hand that was holding on to the cane was trembling as Old Qin asked once again in disbelief. Master, you can save my son? The middle-aged man stood up suddenly and said in excitement. Yes, I can do it now. Wang Xian nodded. So long as you can cure him, the entire Qin family would be grateful to you. I hope you can save my grandson. Old Qin's cheeks blushed slightly as he clenched his cane tightly when he heard Wang Xian. Sure. Wang Xian stroked the head of the little fellow and said, Let's go. I'll cure your disease. Brother, can you really cure me? The little fellow was looking at him as his eyes got redder. Yes, of course. It will be done in a while. Wang Xian smiled and carried him up. 10 minutes. Just give me 10 minutes. Wang Xian, you can use this room. Will not disturb you. Old Shui said hurriedly. Okay. Wang Xian nodded and carried the little boy into the room. The little boy was obedient as he stared blankly at Wang Xian. He was looking forward to it with his glimmering eyes. Wang Xian entered the room because he wanted to avoid setting the world on fire since getting the little boy fixed only took a few seconds. He had to stay under the radar. After all, he had yet to become invincible. Old Shui, can he really do it? Old Qin watched as Wang Xian carried his grandson into the room. Then he turned to Old Shui and uttered words that do not hang together. If he said he can, he can. Old Shui confidently nodded. He looked at Old Qin. Old Qin, your luck is good today since you managed to meet Wang Xian. Relax, am I not looking good now? Old Shui spoke with a smile on his face. Old Qin was slightly stunned by his words. He stared with his eyes wide open. Old Shui, are you saying that your injury was... Old Qin smiled and nodded. Old Qin had a change in his expression. He looked to that room with great surprise. Apart from him, everyone in the river town knew about Old Shui. He had sustained severe injuries and visited many doctors for them. But it was pronounced that he could not live for more than 2 years. Everyone in Rivertown thought the Shui family would eventually fall, but no one expected that the old master of the Shui family would recover and make improvements in his strength. This surprised everyone. When Old Qin heard about this, he brought his grandson to Old Shui so that he could help to alleviate the illness. Never did he expect that he would have such an amazing encounter. Kite has hope, Dad. Kite has hope. The middle-aged man at the side was overjoyed at their unexpected good fortune. He was so happy that he acted like a kid. The eyes of old Qin were full of thrills as he nodded slowly. The entire Qin family had worked painstakingly hard for their only grandson. Finally, they were relieved of it. Old Shui, how did you repay him back then? Old Qin looked at Old Shui hesitantly and consulted him. Repay? Old Shui smiled. Back then, it was a coincidence. My grandson, Xiao Jing, offended Wang Xian accidentally. So, I gave him $10 million as compensation. However, Wang Xian was kind-hearted. He took the money as my medical fees. This? Old Qin was stupefied. How could such a good thing happen? Wang Xian is a kind-hearted person. Treat someone with sincerity, and naturally, the other party will return the favor. Old Qin, you can give them a sum of money with some sincerity. Old Shui pondered and said, Thank you, Old Shui. If you need any help, please let me know. Old Qin nodded his head and spoke to Old Shui gratefully. Sure. Old Shui was taken aback by surprise. The Qin family might not come from the background of an ancient martial artist family, but they had the most robust backings, even from the government. Even the ancient martial artist families would not dare to offend the Qin family. Brother, you're awesome. I'm not feeling sick anymore. A kiddish voice interrupted the people in the living room. Old Qin and the middle-aged man spun around and saw the smiling little kite. His cheeks were rosy as he pulled Wang Xian's hand and walked out of the room happily. Little kite. The old man and the middle-aged man walked over quickly with faces full of surprises. Grandpa, Dad, bring me out. I want to go swimming. The little boy grinned as he spoke. Sure. Sure. The middle-aged man carried the little boy in his arms and kissed him hard on the cheek. Standing at the side, tears welled up in Old Qin's eyes. His grandson's health had always been a load on his mind. Wang Xian, thank you for saving my grandson. Thank you? Old Qin looked at Wang Xian and bowed to him. You're welcome. He is cute too. Wang Xian laughed and shook his head. When he was treating the kid with his dragon energy, he accidentally obtained a thing from the stuff the kid spat out. It was a total surprise to him. Brother, I'm handsome, not cute. The little boy turned to him and said, Thank him now. The middle-aged man told Little Kite. His son was born when he was in his mid-years. His greatest wish was to see his son growing up healthily. Thank you, brother. The little boy grinned. Wang Xian, these are the medical fees for my grandson. It's not a lot, but it is a token of my appreciation. The PIN number is the last 6 digits behind the card. Old Qin took out a card that he just prepared and handed it respectfully to Wang Xian. I, Qin Guowei, have some power in Rivertown. If you need any help in the future, you can call me directly. It is never enough to repay you for treating my grandson. I'll keep the money as the cost of treatment. You don't have to take the rest seriously. Wang Xian took the card with a smile. Firstly, the boy was cute and well-behaved. Secondly, he did this for the money. He was only left with $5 million. It was nothing less, but not a lot. Hence, he depleted some of his dragon energy just to treat the boy. Besides, he could make some friends and build his network. At the same time, he obtained a treasure unexpectedly. This deal was a profitable deal to him. Chapter 52, We Fight 1. Wang Xian, where's your hometown? This is still the first time I've known someone as powerful as you are in Rivertown. Old Qin, you're really humble. I'm not as powerful as you might think. It's just some simple medical techniques. I was from Pinzhou. If there aren't any accidents, I might very well stay in Rivertown for a long period. Hee hee. If your medical techniques were simple, there wouldn't be any great techniques. Sacred Followers Guild and disciples of the medical saint aren't as great as their reputation would suggest. Wang Xian is indeed great in this. For my son's illness, I have consulted almost all the hospitals from the north to the south. A doctor typically has a kind heart. The reason why Brother Wang Xian has such extraordinary medical techniques has very much to do with his young chivalrous heart. You guys are praising me to the skies. I'm just 20 years old and couldn't take all these compliments. Otherwise, I'll get arrogant. Ha! Wang Xian was chatting with old Qin and old Shui in the living room. Shui Jiahua and old Qin's son had the intention to get on the good books of Wang Xian as they went along with the conversation. As for Shui Jing, he had nothing to contribute at all, nor did he dare to interrupt. All he did was to pour tea for others and laugh along. For old Qin and old Shui, they were in an authoritative position with extraordinary backgrounds. They naturally had an aura around them. As for Wang Xian, he wasn't uncomfortable while chatting easily with old Shui and old Qin, as he had the disposition of the divine dragon. Shui Jiahua and the middle-aged man were a little surprised that Wang Xian was able to chat carefreely with their fathers at such a young age. This was something that they couldn't do themselves. Among the younger generation in Rivertown, there was no one that could be compared with him. I heard from Xiaojing that Wang Xian is now operating a restaurant. May I know where is it located so I can go and get some food when we are free? Hee hee, laughed old Shui. I bought over an operating restaurant. It's in the vicinity of the University of Rivertown. I believe old Shui and old Qin might have heard of it before. It's called First Grade Restaurant, Wang Xian replied. Oh? First Grade Restaurant? I would have never thought that brother Wang Xian has bought over First Grade Restaurant. This restaurant is rather famous in Rivertown. In that case, we will pay you a visit when we have the time, old Qin remarked with a tinge of surprise. Sure, not a problem. You'll be more than welcome. When you guys are coming, remember to give me a notice in advance so I can make some preparations for you. Wang Xian laughed. Ha! Great! Great! Old Shui and old Qin nodded their heads. They were naturally happy that they were able to make friends with an extraordinary person like Wang Xian. As for Wang Xian, he had a good impression of old Shui and old Qin. One could tell the qualities of another person by the way they spoke and behaved. Moreover, he had a joyous chat with them too. Oh right! Brother Wang Xian, I'll be hosting a banquet tonight. At that time, there will be many elites of Rivertown. If you are free, do join us. Old Qin invited him all of a sudden. I don't really know anyone, so I guess I'll not be going. Wang Xian was taken aback slightly and shook his head. It's enough to just know these two old men right here. At that time, old Shui would bring his family along too. Since brother Wang Xian would like to grow in Rivertown, it would still be beneficial to get to know more people. Old Qin smiled. All right. Wang Xian hesitated for a while before nodding his head. All right. Do you want to have lunch with us in the afternoon? Suggested old Qin. This might not be possible, Wang Xian replied apologetically. I came over here to look around while I was waiting for a friend. It might not be possible in a while. As he spoke, his phone in his pocket suddenly rang. Haha, since brother Wang Xian has things to attend to, just go ahead. We will be fine. Let's go to your restaurant for a meal when I've arranged a time with old Qin. Old Shui smiled and said, Yeah, go ahead and attend to your matters. Wang Xian smiled and turned on his phone. It was a message from Guan Shuqing. After reading the message, Wang Xian looked at them. Old Qin, old Shui. My friend has just sent me a message, so I have to rush over. Sorry about that. It's fine. Just go. Let's have a chat again when you are free. Wang Xian nodded his head and headed out. Big brother, let me send you over. I'm familiar with the place. Where is your friend currently? Shui Jing came over and asked him directly. Sea Cloud Pavilion 101 Private Lounge. It's near the sea. Wang Xian looked at Shui Jing and said, All right. Big brother, please follow me. Shui Jing smiled and went ahead to lead the way. Along the beach, there was a row of tree houses. It was neatly arranged and looked extremely beautiful. Big brother, this is our Sea Cloud Pavilion 101 Private Lounge. Shui Jing pointed to a small tree house. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head, took out his phone and gave Guan Shuqing a call. Creak. Soon, the door to the private lounge opened. Guan Shuqing, who was wearing a short-sleeved white shirt and black casual shorts, walked out from the room. Wang Xian! Guan Shuqing's expression didn't seem fine. When she saw Wang Xian, she forced a faint smile on her face. What happened? Wang Xian asked, concerned upon seeing her unusual self. Nothing. Guan Shuqing shook her head and said apologetically. It might be tough on you in a while. It's all my fault. What happened? Wang Xian frowned. What's the matter, Beauty Guan? Invite your boyfriend in. At this moment, an impatient male voice sounded from the room. Guan Shuqing's expression changed slightly. Let's go in. Wang Xian lifted one of his eyebrows. He walked beside Guan Shuqing and patted her softly on her back. Guan Shuqing felt a stream of warmth in her eyes. With shimmering eyes, she looked at him. After hesitating for just a moment, she extended her arms over and wrapped them over his arm. Wang Xian's heart skipped a beat, and the edge of his mouth arched up. He walked into the room with a face of smiles with Guan Shuqing. When he entered the room, Wang Xian saw 4 young men and 3 young girls sitting in the room. When the man sitting by the entrance saw Guan Shuqing come in with Wang Xian with her arms around his, gloominess flashed in his eyes. Hello, everyone. Wang Xian smiled at them. The 4 young men in the room started scrutinizing him without reserve. Eh? Wang Xian? Suddenly, one of the girls had a shocked expression and exclaimed out loud. Mayor, you know him? The young man beside the girl asked in bewilderment. Of course, we are classmates. The girl, whose name was Mayor, clung on to the young man while revealing a deep cleavage to him. She then added, Just a poor brat and student in the school. Is it? When the young man heard her reply, he was a little surprised. Of course. Mayor nodded her head. She turned to Wang Xian with a mocking smile and asked, Isn't it Wang Xian? Wang Xian smiled and shrugged his shoulders. Disdain flashed in his eyes as he remarked, Su Mayor is indeed true to the rumors spreading within the school. As he spoke, he sat down in one of the chairs by the side without fear. What do you mean by that? Su Mayor was triggered suddenly and stared at him with outrage. I mean nothing? What did I just say? Wang Xian maintained his smile while replying. Su Mayor was known to be flirtatious in school and changed her boyfriend frequently. Moreover, her boyfriends were all guys from a rich family. Who would have expected her to cling on to a young man outside of school at this moment? Lad, you're pretty arrogant to insult my girlfriend the moment you came in, the young man in front of Su Mayor said coldly. Did I? In that case, is her calling me a poor guy an insult? Wang Xian smiled. What I've said is the truth. Su Mayor exclaimed angrily at him. Did I tell a lie then? Wang Xian spoke plainly to Su Mayor. He leaned back in the chair nonchalantly and looked at all the people around him. When he saw Guan Shuqing's embarrassed look previously, he knew that she must have been treated unfairly but didn't dare to retort. In that case, he had no intention or need to be respectful and polite to the people in the room. Let's just be arrogant then. Chapter 53, We Fight Too. Lad, you're quite arrogant. But I'm not sure if you're fit to talk big. With a cigarette in his hand, a young man in the center was staring at Wang Xian impassively upon seeing Wang Xian's attitude. A poor schoolboy is such an arrogance. What a courageous fool. Guan Shuqing, what a good boyfriend you've got. The young man beside Su Mayor jeered as he looked at Guan Shuqing. Shuqing, is this your taste? Wu Chen, who was sitting beside Guan Shuqing, was staring coldly at Wang Xian with a ferocious look in his eyes. Guan Shuqing was looking pale. She thought it was only her and Wu Chen today, and she was not expecting him to call his friends. That ruined her plan completely. In particular, those friends of Wu Chen were all from affluent families in the river town. The young man sitting in the center, especially, had an even more daunting background and status. Any one of them in the room was not someone Wang Xian could mess around with. Suddenly, she regretted. What if this bunch of people decided to hurt Wang Xian because of her? Guan Shuqing stretched out her hand and tugged at Wang Xian's arm. Sensing the palm under the table, Wang Xian held her hand and gave her an assuring smile. Guan Shuqing went stiff as she felt touched, and at the same time, worried too. She has great taste. Wang Xian smiled and turned around to look at Wu Qin. He observed him from head to toe. At least I'm more handsome than you. Humph. On hearing his words, Wu Qin banged the table with his hand. He stared at Wang Xian. Lad, I'm telling you to leave Shuqing now. Otherwise, there will be a corpse found in the Bohai Sea. You're in way over your head. You can't even estimate your capability. Su Meier jeered at Wang Xian on hearing what he said to Wu Qin. Haha, you guys are awesome since you're asking for my life without any reason. What a great society. Since you're a well-known figure in society, why don't you introduce yourself? Wang Xian turned cold as he heard Wu Qin. Subsequently, he laughed. Remember, my name is Wu Qin, the heir to the Wu's group. Wu Qin answered Wang Xian emotionlessly. Gong family in Rivertown. The young man next to Su Meier said with a smile. Song family in Rivertown. Another young man spoke smilingly. The young man in the middle chuckled. I'm Bai Xiuming, you can find out about me yourself. Wu's group, Gong family, Song family, another one gave me a name to find out myself. You guys are awesome! Wang Xian placed his hands slowly on the table while staring at the four of them with a beaming face. Xiao Xian, don't act recklessly. Upon seeing Wang Xian's action, Guan Shuqing hurriedly whispered in his ears. She was afraid that Wang Xian would get into conflict with the rest of the people whom she treated with care even before her family went bankrupt. I told you to look for me when you have any difficulties. Don't worry. I'll be fine. Wang Xian consoled her softly and looked at the rest. I don't seem to have any conflicts with any one of you, right? Oh, if there is, it would only be with you, said Wang Xian, looking at Wu Qin. Are you having cold feet? We don't need conflicts. We just hate you. Sitting in the middle of the room, Bai Xiuming looked at Wang Xian mockingly. To be honest, thrashing people like you is not fun at all. But you're too arrogant. Here, drink these 2 bottles of liquor up and get lost. Lad, get out of this city. If I see you again, you'll bear the consequences, said Wu Qin while glaring at Wang Xian. He then turned to Guan Shuqing. Your father asked you to marry me, so don't try to be funny with me. If I find out you have other boyfriends, your father will teach you a lesson. Humph. What a brag. Don't you even look at yourself in the mirror? Said Su Meier disdainfully to Wang Xian. Her eyes were beaming with joy from the misfortunes of others. You guys can't do this. When Guan Shuqing looked at them, she was full of regret. If only she knew, she would not have asked Xiao Xian to come. It was all her fault. Guan Shuqing, if you want to find someone to annoy me, you should at least get someone capable of doing so. Wu Qin looked at Guan Shuqing coldly. You guys are indeed from the wealthy families. So stylish. Wang Xian looked at them and drew his lips slowly. This situation seemed to have happened before. In particular, the 2 bottles of liquor in front of him. Wang Xian took out his phone and stood up slowly as he was calling Shuijing. Hey, big brother, what's the matter? At this moment, Shuijing was in a kitchen not far away. He was asking the chefs to whip up some signature dishes for Wang Xian. Someone asked me to find out about him. His name is Bai Xiuming. Wang Xian asked with a smile. Bai Xiuming? Shuijing paused slightly. He should be from the Bai family, one of the ancient martial artist families in the Rivertown. According to the ranking, they should be in 6th place, slightly weaker than us, but not too bad. Oh, got it. I may break a few things. You've got to come and settle it later. Wang Xian hung up the phone after he finished his words. On the other side, Shuijing froze before he screamed. Gosh, big brother is having a fight. Who the hell dares to provoke my big brother? Haha, you're not that stupid since you know how to find out about me from someone else. Bai Xiuming was slightly taken aback when Wang Xian picked up his phone. When he overheard what he said, he chuckled. Okay, I got your information. Wang Xian revealed a smile on his face as he reached for a bottle of liquor. Well, so now you know who you're messing with. Wu Chen was showing a face full of sarcasm as Wang Xian picked up the bottle of liquor. Xiao Xian! Guan Shuqing grabbed on Wang Xian's arm hastily. Wang Xian shook his head and said, "It's all right. I haven't experienced this for very long. Last time, it was for my sister." A smile surfaced on Wang Xian's face. 2 years ago, he was busy with his schoolwork during the last year of high school. His younger sister was afraid that his studies might get affected, so she went to work in a pub to make some money. When he found out that someone bullied his sister, he ran over. The situation was similar to this. The other party wanted him to finish a box of wine before he could take his sister away. In the end, he reached out his hand. In the past, it was for his sister. Today, it was for another girl. In the past, he had nothing except his enthusiasm and boldness. Now, everyone watched in horror when Wang Xian grabbed the bottle of liquor and slammed hard on Bai Xiuming. His strength was so mighty that no one could dodge the blow unless they were level 7 martial artists. Not to mention, it was a sudden attack. Bai Xiuming, the young generation of Bai family, was not any better than Shui Jing. Bam! Upon seeing the bottle coming at him, Bai Xiuming could only react out of his instinct by blocking it with his arm. Ah! Bai Xiuming let out a devastating scream as his arm was shaking from the sharp pain. Wu group, Gong family, Song family, Bai Xiuming? Speak no more and just fight the hell out! Wang Xian flipped the table with his hand and sent his kick towards Wu Chen. If we can't talk it out, we fight. Chapter 54, Crippled. If we can't talk it out, we fight. Let's fight. Wang Xian had his own principles and bottom line. In the past, as long as there was anyone who dared to bully his sister, he wouldn't care who the other party was. He would just fight it out. Throughout primary school, middle school and high school, he was more resolute and brave than most kids, as he was a kid without parents. He knew deeply that only by becoming stronger could he stop others from bullying him. Therefore, as long as there were people who bullied his sister during primary school, middle school or high school, he wouldn't care about the age of these people. He would just risk his life and fight them. 2 fights in middle school deterred anyone from bullying his sister. 3 fights in middle school stopped anyone in the high school from bullying his sister. And a fight outside the bar at that time made all the gangsters in the county wary of disturbing his sister. To those who dared to bully people he wanted to protect, Wang Xian would not waste his words on them. He never had much to say and would just fight it out. In the past, he relied on adrenaline and disregarding dangers to his life. As for now, he could rely on his personal strength. Moreover, Bai Xiuming, who had the strongest background in the room, was still weaker than Shui family. Therefore, he could strike without being fearful of anything. Bam! How dare you hit me? You are dead this time. Bam! Arg! My leg is broken, my leg is broken. Don't hit me. Arg! You are crazy. Stop fighting. Stop fighting. Bam! Wang Xian didn't say anything when he struck. He didn't like to speak while fighting as this would disrupt his flow of actions. Therefore, in less than 10 seconds, the other 3 young men were already lying on the floor of the room. They had food scattered all over them as they wailed in agony on the floor. This was still considering the fact that Wang Xian had controlled his strength. Otherwise, they would have been dead. How dare you hit me? How dare you ambush me? Bai Xiuming stared at Wang Xian, and his body was shaking in anger. He had a hideous expression on him as he stood up and his eyes were bloodshot. I'm going to kill you! Hee hee. Wang Xian took a glance at Bai Xiuming and mocked. Just you? You are still too weak. As he completed his sentence, he saw a bottle of white wine by his feet. He lowered his body and picked it up. Die! Seeing Wang Xian pick up the bottle of white wine, his eyes twitched violently as he jumped. He lifted his legs and kicked towards Wang Xian violently. Bam! However, the bottle of white wine was smashed ruthlessly on his right leg, making him shriek in pain. Arg! Bai Xiuming fell to the floor while wailing in agony. His right leg had been broken. Bam! Wang Xian heard his scream. He kicked impatiently at him and knocked him unconscious directly. Wang Xian, how dare you hit them? You must be eager to die. Su Mei, who had been staying by the side, shrieked in horror. Wang Xian looked over coldly. Xiao Xia, you. How could you start the fight? It's over, Xiao Xian. Guan Shuqing saw Wang Xian strike without warning. Moreover, he even broke their arms and legs. Her heart started beating violently as worries filled her, and her eyes turned red with tears. Big brother. Fuck. Who the hell dares to offend my big brother? At this moment, Shuqing had arrived. Seeing the mess and the 4 young men lying on the floor, he turned to Wang Xian and asked, Big brother, are you all right? I'm fine. Do I look like I'm not? Laughed Wang Xian. That's true. Big brother is so powerful. Chuckled Shuqing. He turned his attention to the 4 young men on the floor and a violent light flashed in his eyes. Damn it. How dare you offend Big brother? As he spoke, he walked straight into the room, pulled them by their clothes and threw them on the floor. Sorry to trouble you. Wang Xian saw the mess in the room and said, Big brother, not at all. Shuqing quickly shook his head. He looked at the 4 young men on the floor and said, He is from Bai family, and this must be Gong Luyun from Gong family. Damn it! They must be too eager to die. Big brother, you are too lenient on them. As he finished his sentence, he kicked consecutively at the arms of the 4 men under the horrified eyes of Guan Shuqing and the other 3 girls. Crack, 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 crack. The sounds of bones breaking propagated over. Shuqing didn't hold back at all and crippled the arms of the 4 young men. Arg! The intense pain jerked them awake as they held onto their arms in anguish. TSK. This is just a small lesson to you guys. Shuqing sneered. He had witnessed Wang Xian's strength. Because of his provocation, he almost died from a single kick of Wang Xian. Based on what his father had told him, if Wang Xian had not stepped in to help, he would have been crippled. Therefore, when he saw that the injuries on the 4 young men weren't that serious, he piled on their injuries smartly to appease big brother Wang Xian. Director Shui! At this moment, 7 to 8 security personnel of the Summer Sun Resort had rushed over. When they saw Shuqing, they quickly greeted him. Call for an ambulance and send them away. Shuqing instructed coldly. Yes, Director Shui. The security personnel nodded their heads. And the 4 of you, get out of here. Shuqing looked at the girls and shouted. Su Mei and the other 2 girls were stunned and looked at Shuqing in horror. Guan Shuqing was also a little shocked as she shrank her body instinctively and hid behind Wang Xian in fear. This is a friend of mine. Wang Xian patted on Guan Shuqing's shoulders and said to Shuqing. Shuqing's body shivered. When he saw Wang Xian's actions, he immediately said to Guan Shuqing, I'm sorry, sister-in-law. It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Guan Shuqing was a little overwhelmed at this point. Big brother, it would seem like you haven't gotten your lunch yet. Why don't I inform my grandfather and let's have lunch together? Shuqing asked with a faint smile. Wang Xian hesitated for a while and looked to Guan Shuqing. Have you eaten? Want to join us for lunch? Guan Shuqing nodded her head vaguely but quickly added. Xiao Xian! Those guys that you beat up had very strong backgrounds. Rest assured. It will be fine. Wang Xian shook his head at Guan Shuqing and smiled. If you encounter any difficulties in the future, just tell me. If anyone bullies you, I'll beat him up for you. Guan Shuqing looked at Wang Xian, gripped onto the edge of her clothes and replied. Thank you, Xiao Xian. Hee hee. Wang Xian stared at her and smiled. Do you mean what you said last night? See your performance. Hee hee. When Wang Xian saw Guan Shuqing's reaction, he had a resolve. He knew that he had fallen for this girl. When he saw her being treated unfairly and fought for her, he knew that the number of people he wished to protect had increased by 1. Big brother Wang Xian, please go to this private lounge. My grandfather and old Qin would be there soon. Let's go and wait in the private lounge. Shuqing said. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head and said to Guan Shuqing, who was beside him, Let's go. We will be having lunch with some friends in a while. Guan Shuqing nodded her head and took another look at the four young men moaning in anguish. Just a while ago, Wu Chen had looked at her arrogantly and told her that she would be his wife in the future and that she had to listen to everything he said. The few other young men around Wu Chen were all looking at her and mocking her about her family's bankruptcy and that she shouldn't think too highly of herself. At this moment, they were all lying on the floor. Chapter 55, Dragon Ball. I heard you just punched a few ignorant lads who offended your companion out of anger. Wang Xian and Guan Shuqing were sitting at a table in the room, chatting when old Shui and old Qin walked in. Following behind them were Shui Jiahua, the son of old Qin and little Kite. Old Shui spoke with a smile as he swept his glance across Guan Shuqing. Hee, those few guys were too braggy. They said they were from the Gong, Song, Bai family, and they even threatened me. I can't hold my fists, Wang Xian said with a smile. Those affluent younger generations. It's good for you to teach them a lesson on behalf of their families, old Shui said with no importance. Yes, I didn't manage to hold back in time. Wang Xian chuckled. So good to be young, old Qin said with a little envy. Ha, come, take a seat. Old Shui laughed. Wang Xian, aren't you going to introduce your confidant? Wang Xian smiled and looked at Guan Shuqing. This is my classmate, Guan Shuqing. Then he turned to Guan Shuqing and continued. This is old Qin and old Shui. Hello, old Qin and old Shui. Guan Shuqing hurriedly greeted them as she was slightly taken aback by surprise when she saw Wang Xian having conversations with two extraordinary elders. Well, she's quite pretty. Old Qin smiled. Guan Shuqing? Do you know Guan Shuqing? The middle-aged man who was carrying little Kite asked suddenly. He's my father. Do you know him? Guan Shuqing looked puzzled at the middle-aged man. I heard about him. The middle-aged man smiled. Oh? Old Qin looked at his son with question marks on his face. Dad, we'll talk about it after dinner. The middle-aged man smiled and said. All right. Old Qin did not probe into it, and continued his chat with Wang Xian and old Shui. The lunch took over an hour. Wang Xian and Guan Shuqing left the place after making a promise to attend the dinner event that night. Dad? Gazing at the back view of Guan Shuqing, the middle-aged man slightly frowned and continued. Guan Shuqing's father went bankrupt. What exactly is going on? Asked old Qin with his eyebrows slightly raised. Guan Shuqing was in the medical equipment business. This year, his vendor encountered some problems and landed him in hot soup. Eventually, he went bankrupt because of this. Her father came to me for help some time ago, but I turned him down, said the middle-aged man. Oh, really? Old Qin pondered. Invite Guan Shuqing to the dinner tonight. Yes, father. The middle-aged man nodded as he understood his father's intention. Guan Shuqing really has a good daughter. The middle-aged man pondered to himself. Tonight, 3 of us are going to disturb old Qin. Old Shui was wearing smiles on his face. He had a small family with only 3 of them practicing martial arts. During the early days, it was Shui Liang'ern who supported the family. Luckily, his son and his grandson did not disappoint him. They had great talents in martial arts. Hence, they could make a name in the river town. A while ago, some of the people were ready for some trouble when he was injured. This time, he was going to announce the return of Shui family along with his son and grandson. They were still the old Shui family, and could only be stronger than ever. Where are we going? Should we stay here? After coming out of the room, Wang Xian looked and asked Guan Shuqing, who was next to him. No. Guan Shuqing shook her head and gazed at him. Wang Xian beamed and looked at Guan Shuqing. When they exchanged gazes, Guan Shuqing turned her head away. Xiao Xian, will they be okay after you beat them up? Don't worry. Didn't you meet old Shui just now? It's his property here. Those Bai and Gong family, and Wu's group didn't even dare to provoke them. Besides, the one who broke the arm of that young man was old Shui's grandson, Guan Xian said confidently. You can't underestimate me. I also know one or two formidable people. But I'm not afraid of them, even if I'm alone. Guan Shuqing was stunned as she looked blankly at Wang Xian. He had brought too much surprise to her such that she was getting mystified by him. But soon, Guan Shuqing smiled and said, Yesterday's agreement is still valid. Wang Xian drew his lips slightly and looked at Guan Shuqing. You said it? I said it. Then you will have to prepare yourself for it. Wang Xian was on cloud 9 as he fixed his gaze on the girl before him quietly. She was almost 1.7 meters tall, with long hair down to her shoulders. Her center-parting hairstyle was only suitable for a goddess like her. The simplistic and monochrome dressing made her look cool and fit her innocent and good figure. Sensing Wang Xian staring at her, Guan Shuqing chuckled and spun her body around. Let's go back to the restaurant. I need to work so that I'm not taking the salary for granted. Sure, the boss will send you over. Wang Xian laughed cheekily. They came to the entrance, and Wang Xian drove her back to the first-grade restaurant. Guan Shuqing hugged Wang Xian at his waist as she sat on the back seat. With a smiling face, she sniffed the fragrance from his body and leaned gently on his back. Boss! Manager Huang greeted them as soon as he saw Wang Xian and Guan Shuqing walking into the restaurant. Wang Xian nodded and returned to his office with Guan Shuqing. Manager Huang was sensible to walk out of the office. I will continue with my data. Guan Shuqing sat down and continued to analyze her data after finishing her sentence. Wang Xian nodded and returned to his seat. He fished out a ball of flesh that was about a thumb size from his pocket. It was the crystal clear, red, glossy flesh, which had been growing in Little Kite's kidney. Glazed Inferno Crystal, Level 6. Extractable Dragon Energy, 48,338. Superpower, Glazed Inferno. Wang Xian toyed the Glazed Inferno Crystal in his palm as he was deep in his thoughts. The Glazed Inferno Crystal was growing in the Little Kite's body. Once the heat broke out in his body, it would burn him. As time went by, the blazing temperature would get higher and eventually burnt Little Kite to death. In order to suppress the Glazed Inferno, the Qin family had been looking for martial artists to suppress it with their internal energy. However, Old Qin was unaware that, while internal energy might have suppressed the Glazed Inferno, it also provided nourishment to the fire and catalyzed its evolution. Hence, Old Qin looked for a Level 2 martial artist to suppress it in the beginning. Subsequently, he noticed that the internal energy of Level 2 martial artist was insufficient. Then he continued to Level 3, 4, 5, and 6. Lastly, he found Old Shui, who was a Level 7 martial artist today. This Glazed Inferno Crystal was upgraded to Level 6 through those internal energy from the martial artists. Once the Qin family was unable to find a more advanced martial artist to suppress it, Little Kite would turn to ash immediately when the next relapse happened. Luckily, they met him. I can increase over 40,000 points of dragon energy, but it would be more practical if I can refine it into a dragon ball. Wang Xian did not devour it immediately because he wanted to build a weapon. Basically, divine dragons did not have to use weapons, as their physical bodies were the most formidable weapon of all. However, there was a refining technique of divine dragon weapons in the divine dragon transformation for Dragon Ball. Chapter 56: A Storm in the Banquet 1. Dragon Balls were weapons unique to the dragon race. Based on their elemental attributes, they would have different Dragon Balls. Dragon Ball of Fire attribute could burn the skies and cook the seas, while the Dragon Ball of Ice attribute could freeze the world. A strong Dragon Ball was sufficient to change an entire world. Wang Xian looked at the Glazed Inferno Crystal in his hand. He dripped a drop of dragon blood on it before injecting dragon energy into the fire crystal. Soon, he felt a sense of control. Wang Xian revealed a faint smile. Through the upgrades used dragon blood and dragon energy, the Glazed Inferno Crystal started to give off its own glow. The crimson-red glow emitted a scorching hot temperature that could easily burn up a human. With just a change in his thoughts, the dragon ball levitated gradually in midair. All Wang Xian had to do was to instruct with his mind and the dragon ball would start moving rapidly. Great! Through the nourishment with dragon energy, this dragon energy will only get stronger and stronger in the future. Wang Xian was pleasantly surprised. Even at this very moment, the strength of this dragon ball was very horrifying. Its temperature could be 3,000 to 4,000 degrees. An ordinary man would be turned to ashes upon contact with the fire dragon ball. At this moment, even my body couldn't take it head on and a level 7 martial artist couldn't touch it at all. Wang Xian thought to himself. With another change in thoughts, he kept the dragon ball in his body. Great, great! Excitement filled Wang Xian's face. Seeing that Guan Shuqing was still reading the information, he switched on the computer and started playing. Xiao Xian, I'll be heading home. At 5+ in the evening, Guan Shuqing spoke to Wang Xian, who was facing the computer. Are you going back now? Do you need me to send you back? Wang Xian took down his earphones and asked. It's okay. Guan Shuqing shook her head. Let me know if there's anything, Wang Xian said to her. All right. Guan Shuqing smiled, nodded her head and headed out of the restaurant. It's 5+ now. I should get going at 7 p.m. Wang Xian looked at the time. There would be a banquet hosted by Old Qin at Old Shue's 5-star hotel tonight, and he would be going over to take a look. When Guan Shuqing got home, her parents asked her to change into an evening gown and follow them to a banquet excitedly. Guan Shuqing was a little surprised by her parents' behavior. Quick! Qin family will be hosting a banquet at Summer Sun International Hotel tonight, and they have invited us, her father said agitatedly. Considering the state of her family at this moment, they were not qualified to attend a banquet hosted by the Qin family. However, they had surprisingly received an invitation. If Guan Shuqing's father could get to know some friends in the banquet or get into the good books of Qin family, it would be an easy task for him to make a comeback. Guan Shuqing was taken aback by what she heard from her father. Qin family? Summer Sun International Hotel? This made her recall her lunch with Old Qin and Old Shui at Summer Sun Resort in the afternoon. However, she did not read too much into it, and couldn't believe that would be true. She changed into the clothes and headed to Summer Sun International Hotel with her parents, in advance. Summer Sun International Hotel was a property under the Shui family of Rivertown. When one spoke of the Shui family, the upper social circle often referred to them as Ancient Martial Arts Family, Shui family. They were ranked 5th in the ranking of ancient martial artist families in Rivertown. However, they would probably advance up the ranking by 1 or 2 as the old master of Shui family had recently achieved a breakthrough. As for Qin family, they were the commerce superpower in Rivertown. Qin family's ancient dynasty property, ancient dynasty logistics and ancient dynasty real estate were all humongous organizations. The assets of Qin family were over $10 billion. Moreover, the background of Qin family was very, very strong. Currently, the old master of Qin family had a war comrade holding an important position in the government. The brother of Old Qin's wife was a very capable person in the capital of the province. Despite not being an ancient martial arts family, Qin family was still one of the strongest in existence within Rivertown. Even ancient martial arts families wouldn't dare to offend them. For the banquet hosted by Qin family tonight, 60% of the elites of Rivertown would be present. At 7:30 p.m., a heavy-duty motorcycle arrived at Summer Sun International Hotel. There was a row of luxury cars lined up neatly in front of the entrance of the hotel. Wang Xian removed his helmet and smiled as he looked at the luxurious hotel in front of him. It seems that I have underestimated the Shui family. This construction cost of this hotel would at least be several hundreds of millions. Wang Xian looked around before walking in. The 7th story was where the Qin family would be hosting the banquet, and they had already booked the entire 7th story. Wang Xian walked out from the lift and headed to the main hall joyously. Mister, please show us your invitation. When he arrived at the entrance, the 2 employees were looking at him with weird looks. Invitation letter? Wang Xian shrugged his shoulders and replied, Qin Lianhui said it would be fine as long as I said I'm with him. You could give him a call to check. Qin Lianhui? Director Qin. The two employees were shocked. One of them took out a phone to verify after taking another look at Wang Xian. Mr. Wang, this way please. After hanging up the phone, the employee spoke enthusiastically. Wang Xian nodded his head and headed in. This is Qin family's banquet. Isn't this young man too casual with his dressing? If he could call our director Qin by his name, his background must not be ordinary. The two employees conversed softly as they saw Wang Xian off. Dressing? With Wang Xian's acute hearing, he could hear the conversation between the two of them clearly. He was shocked and quickly took a look at his attire. He was wearing casual attire from Versace and a pair of white casual shoes. I do look pretty handsome. Perhaps my attire isn't really suitable for the occasion. At this moment, Wang Xian saw the group of people in the banquet hall who had arrived. The guys were all in suits and the girls were in evening gowns. Looking across, he understood the level of this banquet immediately. Most of the men had watches on their wrists. As for the ladies, they had all kinds of necklaces around their necks. Damn it! This is my first time attending a banquet like this. I didn't know about these. Wang Xian truly didn't know. He hadn't given much thought about the banquet in the afternoon, and headed over directly in his casual attire. My attire currently isn't really fitting for the occasion here. Forget it. Since this was organized by old Qin, he will know that I'm not being disrespectful to him. Wang Xian shrugged his shoulders and didn't pay too much attention to it. He walked inside in a straight line. He hadn't had his dinner yet. Therefore, he chose to head to a corner to get some food. Isn't that Shuqing? When Wang Xian arrived at the corner, he was surprised to see a familiar figure. Guan Shuqing was sitting with a middle-aged man and a couple, and they were most probably her parents. Guan Shuqing was wearing a black evening gown tonight. She also had high heels on and exquisite makeup put up, making her look extremely alluring. Wang Xian walked over with smiles. Shuqing, what a coincidence! You are here too! Guan Shuqing was slightly shocked when she saw Wang Xian after lifting her head. She was also surprised and asked, Xiao, why are you here too? Guan Shuqing stood up. Her parents, who were beside her, turned their heads around with doubts. They took a look at Wang Xian before looking at their daughter again. Immediately, they frowned. Daughter, who is he? Her father frowned and asked. To be dressed so casually in a formal setting, the first impression he had of Wang Xian was that this young man wasn't sensible. Chapter 57, A Storm in the Banquet, 2. Uncle, Auntie! Wang Xian greeted Guan Shuqing's parents when they looked over at him. After all, they could be his future parents-in-law. Her? Guan Shuqing's father frowned. He acknowledged, and threw him a glance before he fixed his eyes on his daughter. Dad, this is my classmate. Guan Shuqing hesitated. Classmate. Her father looked at Guan Shuqing and nodded. Wang Xian was a little stunned, as he could sense that his future father-in-law did not seem to like him. Helplessly, he looked at Guan Shuqing. I'll sit over here. As he said, he took a seat at the sofa next to Guan Shuqing. Dad, Mom, I'll chat with my classmate for a while, said Guan Shuqing to her parents as she nodded to Wang Xian. Sit with us. We're bringing you to meet some people later on, said Guan Shuqing's father, frowning. Guan Shuqing knit her brow, sat down with them helplessly, and smiled to Wang Xian with bitterness. Wang Xian shook his head slightly and gave her a smile. Shuqing, what kind of family does your classmate come from? Guan Shuqing's mother looked at Wang Xian with doubts and asked her. This classmate of mine. Guan Shuqing threw a glance at Wang Xian and answered with some pride. Is really awesome, Mom. He's the same age as me, but he already earns millions of dollars. Isn't he superb? Oh? Is that so? He's making millions at such a young age? Her mother said in surprise. Guan Shuqing's father was stunned too. He looked at his daughter and asked, What kind of business is he doing? Guan Shuqing chuckled. Dad, Mom, let me tell you this. That's the best part of him. He only has a younger sister, but he relied on himself and became an entrepreneur. Don't you think he's awesome? No background? Her father paused for a moment and frowned again. Nope, he relies on his own effort when he is just as young as me. Guan Shuqing laughed while saying it. Her father shook his head slightly. No wonder he entered this place in casual wear. I guess he followed someone here, but that person did not bring him to network with the rest of the people. Her father was disappointed. A young man who could earn millions was awesome indeed. But without any backings or background, his achievements would be limited. When he saw Wang Xian picking some food and beginning to eat alone, all the more he shook his head. Upon seeing the expression on her father's face, Guan Shuqing was unsure why. Director Wu is here. Let's go, Shuqing. Her father took a glance at the hall and saw a familiar figure. He quickly got up and told them. Guan Shuqing followed behind reluctantly. My future father-in-law seems to have a problem with me. When Wang Xian realized that Guan Shuqing's parents did not even look at himself, he picked up some fruit and started to feast on it. Then he fished out his phone and dialed for Shui Jing, asking her when she would be here as he was too bored. Piak! Suddenly, a loud slap was heard abruptly in the ballroom. Everyone was shocked, including Wang Xian. Wang Xian was toying with his phone when he turned around. Soon after, he stood up with a darkened expression. At the center of the ballroom, Guan Shuqing was covering her face with her head down, while her father was standing there with a hideous look on his face. Next to them, a few middle-aged men stood there and watched him passively. His father walked over with a sullen face. Director Wu, Director Gong, Master Bai, Director Song, I'm sorry. I didn't expect she would do such a thing. It was my lack of discipline. I'm sorry. Wang Xian came to the middle of the ballroom as he watched Guan Shuqing bowing down and apologizing in fear. Do you think you can settle this with a slap? My son is lying in the hospital with broken limbs now. Chairman Wu glared at Guan Shuqing coldly. When he knew his son was sent to the hospital in the afternoon, he was shocked. He scrambled his way to the hospital where the doctor told him that the right arm and leg of his son were broken. It would take 3 to 4 months to recover. He raged when his son was immobilized. He learned from his son that everything happened because of Guan Shuqing and the boyfriend of hers. This made his blood boil. He immediately sent people to investigate the specific details and the culprit who beat his son up. Yet, Guan Shuqing had the cheek to greet him just now. If this was not the event of the Qin family, he might just make his move. The rest of the 3 middle-aged men were having the same sentiments, as they stared coldly at Guan Shuqing. Guan Shuqing was fearful as he did not expect his daughter would have created such trouble. He trembled in his shoes. Shuqing! Wang Xian walked over and called her name gently. As soon as he saw Guan Shuqing was holding her face, he stretched out his hand slowly and caressed her cheek. Xiao Xian! A teardrop fell on his hand. Guan Shuqing lifted her chin with tears rolling in her eyes. It's all right. I'm here. Wang Xian stroked her face as his heart ached for her. He used the dragon energy to moisturize her cheek. Who are you? Get out of my way! Guan Shuqing looked at Wang Xian first before he stared at Guan Shuqing with a trembling body. I raised you up. It's okay if you're not doing me a favor. Yet you got into such trouble. I'm telling you, I don't have such a daughter like you. Wang Xian looked at Guan Shuqing and frowned. He then turned and gazed at the 4 middle-aged men. With a cold smile, he said, I was the one who beat up all your sons. What? Before the 4 middle-aged men could say anything, Guan Shuqing fixed his gaze deadly on Wang Xian. You were the one who beat up their sons? Yes, uncle. It was me, and it had nothing to do with Shuqing. Wang Xian looked at Guan Shuqing and nodded. Great, so it was you. You scoundrel, how dare you hit their sons? You're courting your own doom. Guan Shuqing pointed at Wang Xian with a hideous face. You are just a wild kid without your manners. Guan Shuqing continued as he looked at the 4 middle-aged men. Master Bai San, Director Wu, Director Gong, and Director Song, it was all his fault, and it has nothing to do with me. On seeing Guan Shuqing pointing his finger at himself, Wang Xian knit his eyebrows tightly. Your daughter is involved in this matter. Master Bai San looked at Guan Shuqing and said coldly. He then turned to Wang Xian. How dare you beat up my son? You are really outrageous. You broke my son's arms and legs. Very well, I'll make sure you repay this tenfold. Director Wu was glaring at him angrily. Chapter 58. A Storm in the Banquet 3. Everyone in the banquet hall was attracted by the commotion and gathered over inquisitively. Wang Xian looked at Master Bai San, Director Wu, Director Gong and Director Song with indifference, and said plainly, I have already beaten them. What do you guys want? How arrogant of you to admit to beating them. Hee, what do you think your outcome will be after beating Master Bai San's son? A young man stood out and ridiculed Wang Xian upon hearing Wang Xian's reply. How? That's a good question. That's a good question. Master Bai San looked at the arrogant Wang Xian and sneered. We are at Qin family's banquet, so I wouldn't do anything yet. Once the banquet ends, I'll let you experience desolation. I'll let you know the outcome of crippling my son. Young lad, I don't care what kind of backing you have. I'll let you experience what is worse than death today. Director Wu stared fiercely at Wang Xian. I wonder who brought this underdressed lad in today. However, I wouldn't care who he is. You will pay the price for what you have done today. Director Song roared at Wang Xian. Who would have expected this lad to be so crazy to cripple the sons of Master Bai San, Director Gong, Director Song, and Director Wu? He must be really eager to die. Yeah? To wear casual attire to attend a banquet, his upbringing must be really bad. He truly deserves death. Even if the people of the four families were to cripple him, it wouldn't be considered overboard. If this lad were to even touch my son, I'd kill him no matter what. The crowd started dissing and criticizing Wang Xian. How could he wear such attire to attend this banquet? In my opinion, we should throw him out. The young man who spoke previously said towards Wang Xian once again. Shut up! Wang Xian sneered upon hearing the criticism of the crowd and the group of arrogant people from the four families. Who the fuck do you think you are? Asking me to shut up? The young man shouted at Wang Xian the moment Wang Xian completed his sentence. He walked to the side of Master Bai San and said, Master Bai San, this kid is really arrogant to beat Shuqing. Let him know the consequences today. He's really arrogant. It's been a long time since I've seen such an arrogant young man. Master Bai San looked coldly at Wang Xian. Excuse me. Suddenly, a cold voice propagated from the entrance. Following which, a beautiful lady walked over. She was in a red dress and had light makeup on her. Overall, she gave off a distant feel to others. Her entrance attracted the attention of many people instantly. Many young men looked towards this figure fervently. The eyes of the young man standing beside Master Bai San lit up as he clenched his fist tightly. The eldest daughter of the Lan family, Lan Qingwei. She's the future successor of the Lan family, Lan Qingwei. The one beside her is the general manager of the Lan family, Lan Gongwen. He is also Lan Qingyue's uncle. The future successor of deep-sea jewelry, Lan Qingwei. They are the strongest listed company in Rivertown, and could be considered as the leaders in the jewelry industry in the country. Some people saw Lan Qingwei and exclaimed softly, Hi, uncles, my friend is at fault for this incident. I would like to ask for forgiveness on his behalf. Lan Qingwei looked at Wang Xian, and the cold look in her eyes flickered for a moment. She walked to the side of him and looked towards Master Bai San and the group. What? Why would Lan Qingwei try to protect this kid? What's the matter? Could it be that this lad has a good relationship with the Lan family? The surrounding crowd was surprised. Some people were even looking at Lan Qingwei with shock. Wang Xian was also looking at Lan Qingwei with bewilderment. He had not expected to see her at this place, and had not expected her to help him. Lan Qingwei turned her head over, smiled at Wang Xian and commented, What a coincidence! This smile was just as beautiful as 100 flowers blooming at the same time. The cold-looking Lan Qingwei had an indescribable charm. "Thank you." Wang Xian expressed his gratitude to Lan Qingwei. Recalling that he had rejected her invitation for a meal twice, he suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Lan Qingwei smiled and nodded her head. She turned her attention towards Director Wu, Director Gong, Director Song, and Master Bai San. "Dear uncles, please look past this incident for my sake. Miss Lan." When Director Wu, Director Gong, and the group saw Lan Qingwei, their expressions changed. Deep Sea Jewelry was a large corporation with a market capitalization of close to $10 billion. This was more than 10 times greater than theirs. Even if the four families added their assets together, they still wouldn't be a match for Deep Sea Jewelry. The only one who wasn't wary was Master Bai San. This was because Bai family was an ancient martial artist family, and couldn't be measured directly using typical cash value and background. However, Master Bai San still wasn't very pleased. After all, a family that was worth $10 billion would have a complicated and widely connected background. When one's money reached an outrageous amount, it could also be seen as one's strength. "Miss Lan, this friend of yours crippled the arms and legs of my son. Aren't you being unreasonable to ask me to let this go?" Master Bai San stared at Lan Qingwei, but his eyes were flickering. "That's right, Miss Lan. My son was crippled because of him. If I just let this go, how would anyone show us respect in the future?" Director Wu added with a solemn face. "Uncles, I, Lan Qingwei, am willing to compensate for the injuries of your beloved sons. Please don't pursue this matter anymore for my sake," Lan Qingwei said with a determined look. Lan Qingyue's words caused the atmosphere of the surroundings to solidify. No one would have expected that the eldest daughter of Lan family would try to protect this wild lad and disregard the fact that she would be going up against four families. This caused a lot of young men in the crowd to be filled with jealousy. "This lad doesn't deserve this at all." Guan Shuqing's expression also changed as he looked on with disbelief. Director Wu, Director Gong, Director Song, and Master Bai San had a ghastly look. They had not expected that the eldest daughter of the Lan family would be so insistent on this matter, disregarding the chances of offending them in order to protect this young man. This caused them to be very embarrassed by the situation. "What? What's the matter?" However, at this moment, a frivolous voice sounded. A middle-aged man walked over from the inner area of the banquet hall and looked inquisitively towards the center. Everyone was surprised and turned their attention to their back. All of them saw a middle-aged man carrying an apple in hand, eating it while walking. "Second Master Qin! Second Master Qin!" Some people in the crowd immediately gave their greetings to this middle-aged man. Second Master Qin was looking a little pale and had serious eye bags. He also looked like a frivolous guy who liked to fool around. When the crowd saw his behavior, they didn't look down on him. Instead, they were addressing him as Second Master Qin, with the utmost respect. This was because he was the second son of Old Qin, or an adopted son. Old Qin had a total of 2 sons. The second son was adopted and was the son of a war comrade of Old Qin. After his war comrade had passed away, he asked Old Qin to take care of his son. Old Qin took him in and adopted him as his son immediately. However, this adopted son was arrogant and cocky from a young age and got into a lot of trouble in Rivertown. He even caused the death of some people. Despite nearing his 40s, he still wasn't married and didn't have a child. Rumors had it that he had a strange fetish, and Old Qin wasn't too fond of him. Despite all that, Old Qin valued relationships and had been turning a blind eye to the actions of this adopted son. Although he was an adopted son, he was still the second master in the Qin family. No matter how useless he might be, he was still high above the rest as his identity was known to everyone. Second Master. Master Bai San immediately called out Second Master Qin when he saw him. Bai family was inferior to Shui family and was even further behind Qin family. When Master Bai San saw Second Master Qin, he still had to greet him politely. Moreover, Master Bai San had always had a good relationship with Second Master Qin. "What's the matter, Master Bai San?" Second Master Qin asked Master Bai San before biting his apple. Second Master, please be the judge for us in this matter. Master Bai San explained the whole situation to Second Master Qin. In the end, he whispered something to Second Master Qin. What? Such a thing has happened? Second Master Qin looked ahead and his vision fell onto Wang Xian and Lan Qingwei. Onis Qingwei, it's better if you stay out of this. This lad deserved the punishment for breaking the arms and legs of others. Wah! Upon hearing Second Master Qin's words, the crowd erupted. Since Second Master Qin has spoken, it would be pointless even if Lan Qingwei put in a good word for him. This lad is as good as dead. Chapter 59, A Storm in the Banquet 4. Things changed once again. When everyone thought that Lan Qingwei could shield this lad, Second Master Qin put it to a stop. Second Master Qin was the godson of old Qin. Even though he was not the favorite son, his status was high enough to suppress Lan Qingwei, who had yet to inherit the deep-sea jewelry. True enough, Lan Qingwei frowned slightly when she heard what Second Master Qin said. Second Master Qin observed Wang Xian from head to toe. He then ditched the apple core in his hand into the trash. Lad, what an insensible lad to come to our function in casual wear. Who taught you to be ill-mannered? Second Master Qin, he is my friend. I hope you'll let him off on my account, said Lan Qingwei to Second Master Qin with a frowning look. Qingwei, we have to be reasonable. This fellow should bear the consequences since he broke the limbs of others. You better not involve yourself. Second Master Qin smiled at Lan Qingwei. Qingwei. The middle-aged man who has been following beside Lan Qingwei tugged her arm and shook his head. Since Second Master Qin is involved, you better leave this matter alone. You won't have any control over this. No way, uncle. He is my friend. Lan Qingwei gritted her teeth and looked at her uncle with determination. The middle-aged man shook his head again. Qingwei, don't be reckless. You have to spare a thought for the Lan family too. Without Second Master Qin's involvement, we can help. But... The middle-aged man shook his head. He could not understand why his niece insisted on helping this young man. If Second Master Qin was not involved, it did not matter at all since Lan family was capable of dealing with this. But the Qin family was the most influential family in the river town. Lan Qingwei had a drastic change in her expression. She looked at Wang Xian worriedly. This has got nothing to do with him. It was all because of me. Guan Shuqing shuddered as she stepped forward and spoke with determination in her eyes. Nonsense, all this happened because of that lad and has got nothing to do with the Guan family. Guan Shuqing, I don't have such a daughter like you. Guan Shuqing was trembling with anger as he bawled. It was I who beat them up. What has it got to do with you? Wang Xian felt comforted when Lan Qingwei lent him a helping hand, and when Guan Shuqing stood in his defense. He slowly walked to the middle of the ballroom and swept his gazes across Second Master Qin, Master Bai San and the rest of the people. With a cold voice, he said again, I did what I did. If things like this happen again, it won't be as simple as this time. Arrogant lad. After you walk out of this door today, I'll make sure you live in despair forever. Master Bai San growled at Wang Xian with a darkened expression. You're arrogant, simply too arrogant. When Second Master Qin saw Wang Xian's attitude, he sneered at him. Why don't we settle this matter now? A cold smile surfaced on Wang Xian's face as he walked slowly to Master Bai San. Wang Xian. Lan Qingwei, who was next to him, quickly called him when she saw Wang Xian walking over. There was no response from Wang Xian as he continued making his way to Master Bai San. How dare you create trouble in the Qin family's banquet? Second Master Qin's expression turned cold when he saw the menacing Wang Xian walking over. How dare you play punk in Qin family's banquet? Lad, you're courting your own death. Master Bai San glared coldly at Wang Xian. He is seeking his own death to act arrogantly in the Qin family's dinner function. Lad, even if we don't kill you, Qin family will not let you off either. Director Wu, Director Song, Director Gong, and the rest of the guests spoke in a low voice while looking at Wang Xian. Reckless lad, seeking his own death. The middle-aged man standing beside Lan Qingwei shook his head slowly. All of you are too noisy. I'll destroy you today. Wang Xian raged. His anger was not only targeting at Master Bai San and the other 3 people. It was also because of the father of Guan Shuqing and the Qing family. Old Qin invited me over, and look what his second son is doing to me. What does he take me, Wang Xian, for? Is this the way the Qin family treats their guest? A ferocious look flashed in Wang Xian's eyes as he stared at Master Bai San. The dragon energy exploded from his body, enveloping Master Bai San and second Master Qin. Both of them had a drastic change in their expression as they sensed the immense oppression of the young man. Lad, if you dare to fight in Qin's place, I'll make sure you die a horrible death, said second Master Qin harshly as he stared at Wang Xian with cold eyes. You're asking for your death if you strike. I'll teach you a lesson so that you'll learn some rules today. The young man before Master Bai San brightened up his eyes when he observed the situation. In a swift movement, he swung his fist at Wang Xian. Gu Qinglong struck. Gu family is an ancient martial artist family that came from other cities. They did not have many members in the family, and their skills were not that formidable, but still, they could not be underestimated. This young lad is simply courting his own death. How dare he strike in the banquet of Qin family? This is as good as slapping them in their faces. He's finished. Just now, Master Bai San and the rest of them did not dare to strike in the midst of the banquet. This lad is just too arrogant. He is seeking a quick way to die. The rest of the guests watched Wang Xian as though they were looking at an idiot. You talk too much. Impassively, Wang Xian looked at the young man who struck at him. He swung out his fist straight at him. How dare an ordinary guy take my fist? Go to hell! Gu Qinglong displayed a disdainful look. He wanted to prove himself. That was the reason why he was so eager to strike today. He wanted to announce the arrival of Gu family in the river town and befriend the Bai family, another ancient martial artist family. In this case, he could quickly build up his foundation. Ka. His thinking was good. But a bone-cracking sound was heard when the fists collided with each other. Gu Qinglong's arm was broken under the formidable power. Useless thing! Wang Xian did not even display 20% of his power. He jeered at Gu Qinglong, who was screaming in pain on the floor. Ah! Gu Qinglong was crying out in agony as he looked frightened. Ah! The rest of the guests let out a gasp and a cry as they saw Gu Qinglong's deformed arm. Wang Xian looked at Master Bai San, and a cold smile surfaced. No hurry. We don't have to wait until we leave. We can settle this one by one now. As he was talking, he made his move and launched his attack on Master Bai San. You're asking for it. I will kill you today. Master Bai San clenched his fist with veins popping out. Master Bai San was a martial artist with level 5 strength. He was shocked to see that the young man before him was also a martial artist. But he had no fear of him. No wonder you're arrogant. But you're too full of yourself. Go to hell! With a hideous look, Master Bai San moved like a fearsome tiger as 5 of his fingers turned into claws. Sending me to hell? You are not fit to do it yet. Wang Xian looked at Master Bai San scornfully. He lifted his foot and swept it across. Die! Master Bai San stretched his claws at Wang Xian's leg. Ka! Bam! Master Bai San felt like he was scratching on a metal surface the moment they collided. Immediately, a mighty force hit his shoulder. Bam! The mighty force sent Master Bai San crashing to the table next to him at a much faster speed. He then landed on the ground and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. You! The moment Master Bai San was knocked down within a split second, Second Master Qin was a little terrified when he saw Wang Xian's emotionless look in his eyes. He tried to act tough as he yelled, Stop it! Otherwise, the Qin family will not let you off. No one dares to provoke us in the river town. You won't let me off? You might want to ask if Qin Guohui dares to say this to me. Wang Xian let out a low growl with an impassive expression. The rest of the people were shocked to hear this. Qin Guohui, old Qin. Chapter 60, A Storm in the Banquet 5. You! What an arrogant brat! Second Master Qin pointed at Wang Xian and was shivering in anger. At this very moment, old Qin and his family, together with the 3 generations of Shui family, were walking towards the entrance of the banquet hall. You won't let me off? You might want to ask if Qin Guohui dares to say this to me. However, just as they arrived at the entrance, all of them heard this angry roar. Old Qin was completely stunned and old Shui immediately frowned. Grandfather, that's Brother Wang Xian's voice, Shui Jing commented quickly upon hearing as his expression turned solemn. Old Qin clearly heard Wang Xian's voice too. His expression changed quickly and a worried look hung on his face. Let's quickly get there and take a look. He couldn't understand why Wang Xian would let out such an angry roar. He couldn't understand why the seemingly amiable Wang Xian, who he had an enjoyable lunch with in the afternoon, would be so angry. Disregarding the fact that old Shui believed that he had unparalleled horrifying strength, Wang Xian had just cured his beloved grandson. Their Qin family couldn't make him an enemy. Moreover, even the Qin family wouldn't go offend such a strong expert for no reason. In the modern era, other than the society, there was also an underworld. Although the Qin family was very strong in society, they still wouldn't dare to offend strong experts of the underworld. Old Shui frowned and quickly hurried in. At this moment, the crowd was completely astounded by Wang Xian's words. Everyone was shocked as no one expected him to shout that Qin Guohui wouldn't dare to say this to him in the Qin family's banquet. Step aside. All of you, step aside! At this moment, Shui Jing's growl sounded from behind the crowd. Everyone who was gathered here was shaken as they quickly looked back. Old Qin is here and old Shui is here too! A middle-aged man couldn't contain his shock and exclaimed. The crowd opened up a path of them automatically. This lad is finished. His death is certain! A weak voice sounded from the side. When Lan Qingwei saw old Qin and old Shui, she couldn't help but feel deeply worried. As for Guan Shuqing, she was dumbfounded when she looked over. Following which, joy and relief replaced her initial emotions and were shown on her face. They really are. They really are. She was shaken up. The 2 people who were walking at the front of the group were the 2 old men she'd had lunch with in the afternoon. When she arrived, she was still a little suspicious. However, she didn't dare to think so and assumed that they were these 2 old men. At this moment, all her worries had dissipated entirely. She recalled the attitude of the 2 old men when speaking with Wang Xian in the afternoon. She was more confident that Wang Xian truly had the qualification to say what he had just said previously. You're finished. How dare you start a fight and injure others in a banquet hosted by the Qin family? You're finished. My dad is here. Second Master Qin was exhilarated upon seeing old Qin walking over. Wang Xian's expression didn't change a bit, and was still emitting the aura of the divine dragon. He turned his head around and looked towards old Qin's family, and the 3 people from Shui family. What a strong disposition! Old Shui could sense the faint aura around Wang Xian and was shocked. He thought that his strength was probably similar to Wang Xian after making the breakthrough. However, he felt that he still wasn't a match for Wang Xian after feeling this disposition. The Qin family and Shui family walked over in a straight line. The surrounding atmosphere had frozen up and no one even dared to take a deep breath. When old Qin heard what his adopted son said, his hand, which was holding on to the walking stick, started trembling. He walked directly towards Second Master Qin without any expressions. Father, he actually dares to, in the banquet organized by us. Arg! When Second Master Qin saw his father walking over, he reported happily. However, before he could even complete his sentence, the walking stick in old Qin's hand had landed ruthlessly on his leg. Crack, crack! The walking stick made of solid wood broke directly. One could easily imagine how furious old Qin was. Father, you! Why did you beat me? Second Master Qin's face turned pale as he grabbed onto his leg and spoke in horror. Haze! Old Qin suddenly heaved a sigh. When your father passed away and handed you over for me to take care of, I saw you as my biological son. However, you have repeatedly, I have always turned a blind eye to your actions, but you didn't learn your lessons and committed so many heinous acts under the name of our family. There will be a day when our family might get into serious trouble because of you. Old Qin threw his walking stick onto the floor. Lianhui, transfer Rivertown mining grounds to his name. From this day onwards, he would have nothing to do with our Qin family. No matter if he is dead or alive, it has nothing to do with the Qin family. Our Qin family isn't blessed enough to have him. Old Qin's strong words propagated throughout the banquet hall. No one could have expected this development. Second Master Qin was directly expelled out of Qin family. This. However, what shocked the crowd the most was Old Qin's bowing down slightly as he spoke to the young man. I'm sorry, Brother Wang Xian. I'm sorry. It's because of my loose teachings that you had to suffer. Brother, don't be angry. Hug! Little Kite looked at the solemn-faced Wang Xian and said as he walked in front of him and raised his arms. After witnessing the attitude of Old Qin and the cute little Kite, a smile appeared on Wang Xian's face. He reached out his arm and carried little Kite. Old Qin, it was I who was impulsive. Sorry for causing you troubles. Old Qin heaved a huge sigh of relief upon seeing Wang Xian's expression. He smiled. That's great. As long as Brother Wang Xian doesn't blame it on this old man. Wang Xian smiled and replied. I was impulsive. I hope you wouldn't blame me. Ha ha! Old Qin laughed out. Old Shui and I were a little late. Sorry about it. Brother Wang Xian, come. Let us take a seat now. I'll definitely give you a good explanation for what happened today. Wang Xian smiled. Grandfather, I have found out about the incident. Shui Jing returned immediately after going over to a service attendant to find out more. Subsequently, he repeated the whole event softly. It seems like it's still about the incident in the afternoon. By family? A murderous intent flashed past old Shui's face. In that case, I shall use by family to establish our dominance. As for the rest, I'll leave them to Qin family to settle. Yes, father! Shui Jiahua nodded his head and looked to Qin Lianhui. Qin Lianhui nodded his head and headed directly to Director Wu, Director Gong and Director Song. As for Shui Jiahua, he walked over to Master Bai San who had crawled up. Father, no. This can't be. At this moment, Second Master Qin was mumbling to himself in a daze. He couldn't believe that what had happened was the reality. If he left Qin family, who would he be in Rivertown in the future? And at this moment, the crowd in the banquet hall had their attention focused on the young man who was carrying old Qin's beloved grandson. They were completely lost. They would have never expected things to end up this way. Second Master Qin was expelled from Qin family, and that young man could make old Qin bow down to apologize? They quickly looked towards the future successor of Qin family who was heading towards Director Wu, Director Song and Director Gong. They then looked at Shui Jiahua, the future pillar of Shui family. Eventually, they turned and saw Director Wu, Director Song, Director Gong and Master Bai San. Their faces had turned pale and they seemed to be scared out of their wits. Chapter 61. A Storm in the Banquet 6. Master Bai San, the arm of your son was broken by my son. Serves your son right for offending the benefactor of Shui family. In the ballroom, Shui Jiahua walked towards Master Bai San and stared coldly at him. Master Bai San was trembling as he looked at the young man between old Shui and old Qin. A bitter smile surfaced on his face as he looked embarrassingly at Shui Jiahua. From the exchange just now, he knew that he had provoked the wrong people. The strength that the young man had exploded just now was definitely coming from someone whom the Bai family could not afford to offend. But you are equally wicked. After Shui Jiahua threw out his cold and harsh remark, he punched out at Master Bai San's shoulder immediately. Upon seeing the attack from Shui Jiahua, Master Bai San wore a different expression. But he did not dare to resist. Old Shui from the Shui family was thought to be a dying person. Yet he had suddenly recovered and made a breakthrough in his level. This reshuffled the rankings of the ancient martial artist families in Rivertown. The Shui family was already more formidable than the Bai family. Now they had become people whom they could not afford to provoke. Kaka! A bone-cracking sound was heard from the ballroom. Everyone was horrified to see Master Bai San lying on the floor as he hugged his arm in extreme agony. Your broken arm shall serve you a lesson. If you have any grievances, the Shui family will answer all of them, said Shui Jiahua coldly to Master Bai San. Everyone was shocked to watch the fearsome Shui Jiahua. Director Gong, Director Song, Director Wu. On the other side, Qin Lianhui came to them and looked at those millionaire directors. Director Qin. They quickly addressed him. At this time, cold sweat was breaking on their foreheads with eyes full of horror. Mr. Wang is a guest of the Qin family, Qin Lianhui said emotionlessly. We were also there in the afternoon when it happened. We were planning to give you a warning tonight. Qin Lianhui was speaking impassively as though he was talking about a trivial matter. Yet the directors could not help but to shake in their boots as they knew that it was the end of the story for them. Director Qin, we were wrong. I really didn't know. If I had known, I would have killed that unfilial son of mine. Director Wu almost went jelly as he bowed with his shaken body. Leave Rivertown now and don't let me see you again. Qin Lianhui gestured, annoyed, at them. Their faces turned black when they heard what Qin Lianhui said. Yet they were in such despair that they had nothing to say. Asking them to leave Rivertown was equivalent to asking them to give up their foundation over here. But they were powerless to put up any resistance because this was the decision made by the Qin family. It was all my son's fault for offending someone that he shouldn't. The three directors clenched their fists and walked out like zombies. There was no place in the entire Rivertown for them. Master Bai San also left with his face full of despair. Anything that took place in the society would have to be resolved within the society. So were the underworld matters. Even though Bai family was not asked to leave their base in Rivertown, the Shui family would forever be pressing on them. Bai family would not be able to obtain some resources in the future. Throw him out. As Shui Jing spoke to one of the hotel staff, he stepped on both legs of Gu Qinglong at the side with force. The surrounding crowd could not help but shiver when they saw the happenings unfolding. They were glad that they did not intervene or jeer at that young man. But those who spoke ill of that young man were standing there with their hearts in their mouths. Second Master Qin, the adopted son of old Qin, had been expelled from the Qin family. Master Bai San of the Bai family had gotten his arm broken by Shui Jiahua. Gong Song and Wu family would no longer have their foothold in Rivertown. Gu Qinglong of the Gu family who had helped Master Bai San would only have a tough life in Rivertown. All these were results of offending the young man. They stared blankly at the young man who was talking jovially with old Shui and old Qin. No wonder he did not regard the Gong, Wu, So, and Bai families highly. No wonder he dared to come to this banquet in casual dressing. He did not have to care, and he had no need to care about any of them. This symbolized power. Aren't old Shui and old Qin in casual wear too? At this moment, Guan Shuqing, who was in the middle of the crowd, was in a daze. He was looking in disbelief at the young man who was sharing a jovial conversation with old Shui and old Qin. The thought of the young man addressing him as uncle was smiles on his face. The thought of him treating the young man coldly, scornfully and even. He regretted it very much. If I could reverse everything, I would surely hold on to him. Definitely. Why did this happen? Guan Shuqing felt restless. It was such a good opportunity for the rising of Guan family again. At this time, he saw Director Qin walking towards him. He was slightly uptight and fearful. Miss Guan, niece Lan. Guan Shuqing noticed that Director Qin was walking towards his daughter. Uncle Qin. Lan Qingwei answered politely. Director Qin. Guan Shuqing nodded to Qin Lianhui. They had been having lunch in the afternoon just now. I'm sorry, Miss Guan, to have let you suffer some injustice. Director Qin apologized to Guan Shuqing. No, no. Guan Shuqing quickly shook her head. With Xiao Xian around, I didn't suffer much. Right, there is Wang Xian around. Qin Lianhui laughed. He turned to Guan Shuqing and smiled. Director Guan, we will discuss your matter later. Director Qin! Guan Shuqing was stunned. Upon seeing the other party's smiling face, he suddenly got excited. He looked towards his daughter and thought of some possibilities. Piak! Piak! Guan Shuqing walked to his daughter and slapped himself on his face. Girl, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. Don't blame me. When Guan Shuqing saw her father walking towards her, she was feeling complicated. She sighed softly. After all, this was her father. Dad, I don't blame you at all. Guan Shuqing shook her head. I'm glad that you don't blame me. I'm glad to hear that. Guan Shuqing nodded with a smile. He hesitated before he asked, Girl, what's the relationship between you and that young man? When Guan Shuqing posed that question to Guan Shuqing, Lan Qingwei was also anxious to hear the answer. Friends, we're just friends. Guan Shuqing replied, knowing what her father was thinking. Just friends? Guan Shuqing was a little disappointed. He was hoping that the young man could be the boyfriend of his daughter and his son-in-law. If that were the case, who would dare to offend him, Guan Shuqing, and the entire Guan family in the future? Chapter 62, A Storm in the Banquet, End. I'd like to go over and say hi to two friends of mine. Old Qin and Old Shui, please have a chat now. The banquet continued as per normal. Although the atmosphere had changed a little, the impacts weren't that great. After informing Old Qin and Old Shui, Wang Xian turned his attention to the banquet hall and headed towards where Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingwei were. Feeling the intentional and unintentional gazes from the crowd, the edge of Wang Xian's mouth started to arch up. Chairman Lan, thank you. Wang Xian saw Guan Shuqing was talking to her parents, and thus went over to Lan Qingwei to express his gratitude first. Just a while ago, Lan Qingwei had to endure the huge pressure from the crowd to put in good words for him. Lending a helping hand when one was in need was tough, while sucking up to one when he was basking in the light of success was easy. She belonged to the former. He was a little surprised that Lan Qingwei had chosen to help him but was also grateful to her. Lan Qingwei, who was in a red evening gown, looked extremely alluring under the warm lights of the banquet hall. While wearing high heels, she was approximately the same height as Wang Xian. Her beauty couldn't be appropriately described with words. You're welcome. Lan Qingwei looked at him with fervent eyes. As compared to their previous encounter, she felt that the strange quality of Wang Xian had gotten stronger by a little. It's too heartbreaking that you have rejected my invitation for a meal twice to thank you for the previous incident. Lan Qingwei looked at him and recalled his rejections. She couldn't help but comment unhappily. Hee hee. Wang Xian laughed awkwardly. I've really been a little busy in the last 2 days. However, if you would like to have a meal together, you can come to my restaurant. I'm staying there for almost the entire time each day. I could also give you a treat. Your restaurant? Great! Upon hearing his reply, Lan Qingwei revealed a faint smile and nodded her head. In that case, we have a deal. Yeah. Wang Xian smiled and nodded his head. Just beside them, Guan Shuqing felt his head aching when he saw Lan Qingwei and Wang Xian chatting. He naturally knew who Lan Qingwei was, as she was the future successor to the Lan family. Her family wealth was among the top 3 in Rivertown currently. Moreover, there was nothing one could pick on about Lan Qingwei's looks. Within the entire Rivertown, she was at the highest level. Seeing how she had tried to protect Wang Xian a while ago, he was able to tell something from it. When it came to looks, he was confident that his daughter wasn't inferior to Lan Qingwei. However, when it came to family background, the difference was stark. It was especially so after what he said previously. At the thought of this, he started to regret further. He wasn't just feeling regretful but also feeling a sense of danger. If his son-in-law was snatched away, it would be pointless for him to cry over it then. Guan Shuqing's expression was changing constantly. He was thinking of ways to get on the good books of Wang Xian, and also to make up for what he'd done previously. Guan Shuqing saw Wang Xian and Lan Qingwei chatting joyously and was feeling a little uncomfortable about it. After finishing his chat with Lan Qingwei, Wang Xian turned his head and smiled at Guan Shuqing. He walked over and asked, "Shuqing, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Guan Shuqing nodded her head. She looked at him and said, "Thank you, Xiao Xian. You don't have to." Wang Xian smiled and shook his head. "Son-in-law, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I was wrong in the incident previously. It's all my fault. Please forgive me." At this moment, Guan Shuqing came over shamelessly and spoke with a sincere face. He was even calling Wang Xian his son-in-law. Wang Xian was taken aback, and so was Guan Shuqing. He had not expected Guan Shuqing's father to be so shameless. "Father, what are you calling him?" Guan Shuqing's face had turned red while speaking to her father. Hee hee. Guan Shuqing continued smiling and said to Wang Xian once again, "I was foolish and timid previously. Please don't take it to heart." Wang Xian was speechless while looking at Guan Shuqing. The current him was completely different as compared to when he first saw Wang Xian. What an opportunistic person! Wang Xian wasn't too calculative with him, as he was Guan Shuqing's father after all. However, he wasn't being too close and friendly with him either. He shook his head, smiled, and replied, "It's all right. As long as you are fine with it. Have a chat with Shuqing first while I get some food together with her mother. Come over to our house for dinner when you're free. I'll get my wife to make you some delicious food." Guan Shuqing could feel that Wang Xian was keeping a distance from him. However, he was rather thick-skinned and spoke solicitously. Wang Xian nodded his head. "Sure, uncle." "Great!" Guan Shuqing heaved a huge sigh of relief. He turned around and walked towards a woman by the side. "Xiao Xian, my father is a little. I hope you don't mind," Guan Shuqing said as she looked at her father. "It's fine." Wang Xian smiled and shook his head. After which, he turned to Guan Shuqing and said, "This is Lan Qingwei. Shuqing, I believe you know her too." "Hello?" Lan Qingwei looked at Guan Shuqing, smiled, extended her hand and greeted. "Hello?" Guan Shuqing also looked at Lan Qingwei and extended her hand. A special force field was formed between the two of them. When the young men in the banquet hall looked over and saw these two gorgeous ladies, they couldn't help but feel slightly shocked. At the same time, they were envious of the teenager standing beside them. "You girls are really charming." Feeling the surrounding gazes, Wang Xian smiled and complimented them. "Junior Shuqing is really beautiful and has attracted everyone's attention." Lan Qingwei smiled and commented, "It's senior's charisma that is stronger. I'm still a long way behind." Guan Shuqing replied immediately. The atmosphere was slightly strange. "Haha, both of you are beautiful." The insensitive Wang Xian didn't notice and simply complimented the two girls. This caused the two girls to break into laughter while looking at each other. "Wang Xian, I have to go greet some people with my uncle. Don't forget that you will be treating me to a meal." Lan Qingwei smiled and said to Wang Xian, "All right, go do what you have to." Wang Xian nodded his head. Subsequently, Wang Xian chatted with Guan Shuqing for a while before heading towards where Old Qin and Old Shui were at. Old Qin introduced him to some people in Rivertown. There were businessmen and also officials working in the government. For a guy that could make Old Qin bow down to apologize, they naturally wouldn't dare to be lax and entertaining, as they were full of smiles while conversing with Wang Xian. Through this banquet, Wang Xian obtained a lot of name cards. When he walked out of the banquet hall, it was already 11 o'clock at night. After bidding goodbye to Old Qin, Old Shui, Lan Qingwei, Guan Shuqing and her parents, Wang Xian rode his heavy-duty motorcycle towards school. As the cold wind blew on him, Wang Xian was feeling very comfortable. After today, he could be considered as having a strong foothold in Rivertown. What would come next was to strengthen himself. The moon was bright and Wang Xian was heading back to school on his heavy-duty motorcycle. The trees along the pathways were moving past him rapidly. There were barely any other people or cars left on the roads. Just as Wang Xian was coming to a curve, a black shadow crashed towards him. Screech! Wang Xian was slightly shocked and immediately slammed on his brakes. Sharp grinding noises propagated as the motorcycle's wheels scratched against the road. Chapter 63: The Five Elements Stone Plate. Bam! An old man who was soaked in blood fell on the road in front of him. Cough! The old man looked up. With a pale-looking face, he looked towards the trees and bushes at the roadside with a despairing expression. Mo Qinglong, you can't run away. Hand over the thing now, and I'll let you have a peaceful death. Soon after, an angry bellow was heard. Wang Xian saw 8 men rushing towards his side. They were like the martial arts experts on the television who leaped onto the tree branch and landed on the road in front of him. The 8 of them were dressed uniformly in black costumes. The swords in their hands were flickering with cold radiance under the moonlight. A middle-aged man in the center stepped forward and glared coldly at the elder on the ground. Green Lotus Ancient Sect, the so-called decent sect, stooped to using despicable and shameless resorts just to steal the treasure from the ancient fiend clan. The old man stood up slowly with hideous expressions on his face. Ha ha, the ancient fiend clan has always been up to no good. We are going to uproot your clan and finish off all the assassins that the clan has cultivated. We're doing this for the good of the people. Mo Qinglong, don't ever think of escaping today. Hand over the 5 elements stone plate now. The middle-aged man in the center was glaring at the old man with immense killing intent. He stared at the chest area of the old man with greed in his eyes. Unless you kill me, you bunch of hypocrites will never ever get it. The old man was covered in blood with numerous cuts on his body. His clothes were getting soaked in his fresh blood. Then we'll kill you. The middle-aged man in the center had an impassive look. He looked towards both sides and commanded, Kill him. We must get the 5 elements stone plate. Kill! The rest of the 7 members nodded and launched swift attacks at the old man. One of them suddenly looked up and fixed his gaze on the spot where Wang Xian was. Count yourself unlucky today. As he spoke, he flung his arm and hurled a dagger at Wang Xian. Without looking at him, the man turned to attack the old man. In his opinion, Wang Xian could be considered a dead man. It was an unexpected misfortune to any commoners. Wang Xian was about to take his leave when he saw what happened. But his eyes could not help but narrow when he saw the dagger flying towards him. How tyrannical of them! I'm just a passerby. Wang Xian squinted his eyes as he looked at the incoming dagger. He stretched his arm out. Piak! The dagger was easily grasped by Wang Xian. Back in the fight, the old man was besieged by 8 people, and soon, he took another 2 slashes on his body. The old man's strength should be around level 8, and only the middle-aged leader is on par with him. The remaining martial artists are all at level 7. Radiance flickered in Wang Xian's eyes. He got down from his Harley motorcycle slowly and gazed at the 8 people with a cold look. If it were not for you who wanting to kill me, I would have never interfered in this. But now, it's a good chance for me to test my skill. Wang Xian curled his fingers into a fist. He was wearing his helmet, but he was not afraid that someone would recognize him. Ka ka ka! The dagger in his hand was crunched into a ball and discarded on the floor. I'm just a passerby, yet you guys wanted to silence me. Fine. If that's the case, let's have some fun. Wang Xian moved as he talked. He sprang into action and attacked the closest middle-aged man. Courting your own death. Qingwen and Qinglai, kill him! The middle-aged leader was looking cold as he commanded loudly after Wang Xian dodged the dagger and attacked them. Lad, never did I expect that you're a martial artist too. However, you are bound to die today. The 2 middle-aged men, Qingwen and Qilai, took themselves out from the joint attack of the old man and looked towards Wang Xian. Immediately, they made a counterattack. He he. There was only coldness in Wang Xian's eyes. Even though he had a good temper, his killing intent was triggered when he met a bunch of people who wanted to kill him without any reason. The two middle-aged men wielded their sharp and long swords at his chest and throat. Have a taste of my physical power! The dragon energy in Wang Xian's body surged. He stretched out both his hands and grabbed the two sharp swords. Die! The two men looked at him disdainfully as they spun the long swords in their hands. Go to hell! Piak piak! However, what shocked them was both swords were caught, and their attacks were stopped. Ka ka ka! Oh no! Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they noticed the long swords in their hands were giving way. Die! Wang Xian hurled himself forward and attacked one of the middle-aged men. He had not learned any martial arts before and had little experience in real-life combat. However, the power and speed of the divine dragon were insurmountable. He held his fist tightly. With his mighty strength, he swung his fist at the middle-aged man who was looking shocked and horrified. He wielded his sword across his chest for defense. Ka! The sword broke when the sound was heard. The domineering force struck onto the chest of the middle-aged man. Bam! The middle-aged man felt as though his chest had exploded. His eyes were protruding out as he stared at Wang Xian with disbelief. Damn, we met an expert! The other man who witnessed the instant death of Qinglai was horrified. Hence, he quickly called out. Didn't you guys say you were going to kill me? Wang Xian lifted his head and stared ferociously at that middle-aged man. Like a raging beast, he struck an attack with brutal force. Green Lotus Sword Dance! That middle-aged man was horrified to see Wang Xian charging at him like a raging beast. He wielded the long sword in his hand, and an image of a green lotus appeared before him. The green lotus was carrying a bone-chilling cold radiance with it. Fancy but impractical. Despite seeing the green lotus sword formation, Wang Xian did not have the slightest hesitation. He continued punching his fist out. Ka ka ka! When the sleeves on Wang Xian's arm were torn, it sounded like shattering glasses. Blood traces could be seen on his arm, but they recovered almost instantly because of the mighty divine dragon's body. No! When the middle-aged man let out a devastating scream, Wang Xian's fist already landed on his chest. Immediately, his chest sank in, and he collapsed on the floor. Damn! Qingwen and Qinglai got killed! The devastating screams from Qingwen and Qinglai drew shocking exclamations of those middle-aged men who were attacking the old man as they watched in disbelief. Initially, they thought they killed an ordinary passerby just to conceal the secret. But no one expected that he was a formidable martial artist who killed two level 7 martial artists instantly. Level 7 martial artists were experts who could establish an ancient martial artist family in this world. I was only passing through this place, and yet you guys wanted to kill me. Then don't blame me for it. Let's see who will win today. Wang Xian stared at the remaining 6 people. All he wanted was to fight. He wanted to find out how strong he was now. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.